Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I'm so glad all of you could join us here. It is Friday night, October 26th, 2018. And I would like to welcome all of you to episode number 150 of the Beyond the Ring with Big T Wrestling Podcast. Of course, I am your host, Big T, right here with all of you tonight. And we have a very special guest here tonight for episode number 150. And I would love to introduce to all of you, we have professional wrestler, Mr. Bob Cook, here with us tonight. Bob, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. Hello, YouTube.
Yep, you're live. You're live to the world.
I'm almost dead. I'm 55 and almost dead, but at least I'm alive tonight.
Hey, you know what? You're here with us, and I'm sure you'll be here for plenty longer.
I don't know. You know, the life expectancy of a wrestler, 50 is not even close. So I'm buying time.
You've succeeded that. You've succeeded that for sure.
I know. That's what I mean. I'm on borrowed time.
Well, let's hope you're one of the boys, you know, that go a long, long way.
Well, we'll see. I don't have any control over. Well, technically I do. Oh, never mind.
I want to start off, actually, in this interview tonight. I want to start off at the very beginning, you know, with everything. And let's talk about, early on in your life. It could be your childhood or teen years, you know, whenever you first discovered pro wrestling. But when you first discovered pro wrestling, how old were you? And then when did you make the decision that, wow, I need to do this. This is something I need to do. I need this to be a part of my life. I want to be a professional wrestler.
Well, I first became really aware of wrestling in 1975 when I moved to Florida from Michigan. I didn't watch it in Michigan, which I regret now looking back, because you had the big-time wrestling with the Sheik there, and I would have loved to see that, which I watch some of it now. But, I wasn't into it then. I met a kid here in Florida who was into it. I was playing basketball with him one day, and it's getting dark, and he's like, I want to go home and watch wrestling. I'm like, what are you going to go watch that crap for? And I went home and watched it. I was only like 11 years old. I went home and watched it with him, and I fell in love with it instantly. I loved everything about it, the characters, the drama, the comedy, the violence, the blood. And from that moment on, I was like, man, I want to do this. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but that's what my mind was thinking. And I never missed a show from that point on Florida wrestling, and then was able to get my dad to take me to the live shows, and then eventually go with friends as I got older and drive.
And then it just kind of grew from there.
Yep.
What were the first steps you taken as far as getting into training?
Well, I had no idea. Back then you couldn't Google a wrestling school. There was no backyard rings because you didn't have a High Spots or MonsterRing.com where you could just buy a ring and have it delivered. I just got lucky. Back in those days, wrestling was much more closed. They didn't want outsiders in. The way you could get in really was to be friends with a wrestler, be friends with a wrestler's kid, and, just gradually get into it, like Steve Curran did, and Dick Slater and all those guys that were friends with Mike Graham, and eventually, got into business. So I just got lucky. They used to tape championship wrestling from Florida at the Sportatorium in Tampa. And I went to the show one time after I graduated from high school with the mindset of hoping to figure out how to get in wrestling. I was 18 years old. And I went there and I talked to an old wrestler named Gordon Nelson, and he's like, oh, yeah, you got to try out, but you got to be in really good shape. Back in those days meant they'd take you in the ring and beat you up, stretch you, send you on your way, break your legs, like they did to Hulk Hogan and other guys, and hope you never came back. I didn't know that at the time, but I also didn't go there because the next week I was coming out of the Armory in Tampa where they had, I know I'm rambling, but I was coming out of the Armory in Tampa where they had wrestling every week for like 40 years. On a Tuesday night, and there was a flyer on my car that said, become a professional wrestler, make big money, travel the world. And it was the wrestling school for the great Malenko, who is the father of Dean Malenko and Joe Malenko.
Oh, wow.
And I called that number the next day, met him, and started training, and that was it. From that day forward, I was going to be a wrestler. Hey, maybe not a successful one, but who cares?
Hey, as long as you're in it, that's all that matters. If you're living the dream.
Most people aren't successful in it, so.
Yeah.
But the reality is, most people who want to be wrestlers don't even try. So.
And you know, the whole thing is the road to this business. You know, whether you're a wrestler or like me, you know, I'd love to get into commentating or, you know, something with creative. I mean, anything with the wrestling business, the road is a very narrow road.
Yeah, especially back then. I mean, we're talking 1981.
Yeah, that was before I was even born.
Right, rub it in. No, but that, it was a lot harder to get in then, and even the great Malenko was on the outs with the main wrestling. He had been, no longer used by Championship Wrestling in Florida, and he was kind of, not the most favorite guy with them because he was running shows against the main company. But that's how you got started back then.
And basically, how they would train you, it's not like today, huh? Like you were saying, just a little bit ago, they would take you in and pretty much rough you up and hope you wouldn't come back. And it's basically the ones that made it through all that rough stuff are the ones that would go on to become the wrestlers.
Well, I mean, that's what Championship Wrestling from Florida did, but that's not what the Great Malenko did.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Great Malenko was the exact opposite of what you hear. You'll hear guys that tell stories. Oh, when I broke in, I wasn't even smartened up for 6 months till I got, they used to beat me up week after week. But Malenko never did that. From day one, he told us what it was. He showed us what it was. He treated us with respect. He never once stretched us. He never once proved that he could hurt us because he could have. Mainly because he probably wanted us to come back and pay him the money we were paying him. But he was just a wonderful person, like a second father, a mentor friend, and I miss him to this day. And if I talk too much about him, I'll start crying. But he never once disrespected the wrestlers like a lot of the trainers did, and some of them still do today, like that Bill DeMott that got fired from WWE for treating people like crap.
Yep.
Malenko never did that. Malenko was the kind of guy, the first day you went there, you listened, you learned, and you couldn't wait to get back the next day.
And how long did you have to train for under the great Malenko?
I probably had my first match about 6 months after I started, but I kept going to his school for years after that just to work out with him and just to be around him because he wasn't just a wrestling teacher. He was a mentor of life. He'd lived 1,000 lives. He'd been married, he'd been divorced, he'd been rich, he'd been poor, he'd had kids, he'd had troubles with the wife. You know what I mean? He'd lived a life, so he was able to direct you in your life and help you through the things you're going through based on his experiences. And he was what I call him the answer man. He's one of the few people. There's only another person like him that I can recall, but no one exactly like him, obviously. But he was one of those people that I could go to for any problem I had, whether I was down on the dumps because of my marriage or whatever the problem was. And when I got done talking to him, I felt like I could take on the world. And I've never met anybody like that before.
And it's very hard to find somebody like that, and give you all the motivation that you need and just all the great advice. And I can
right.
imagine.
I mean, there's still things that I do today where I think I'm going to do something stupid and I'll hear his voice and I'll turn around and not do it, or think of something. I can't think of something I need to do and I'll think of things he told me to do and it'll help me through the problem still to this day. And he's been gone for 24 years.
Oh wow! So he's been gone a little while.
Yeah, he passed away from leukemia, unfortunately, and hopefully Roman Reigns doesn't. But he passed away from leukemia in 1994.
Yeah, it's that's another thing. Just hearing leukemia, I just want to say real quick, best wishes to Roman Reigns, and let's hope that he's able to fight this battle and beat this thing.
Tell me you didn't cry when he made that announcement. I did.
Yeah,
I'm not ashamed to admit it. Because unlike the overbearing, I'll use this term probably a lot, unlike the overbearing, underappreciative wrestling fans, I've always liked Roman Reigns. So it hurts even worse when you respect somebody and you understand what they're going through and you know the work they put in week after week, and then something like this happens, man. It just breaks your heart.
Yeah, and everybody watching, whether it was a fan that loved him or a fan that didn't, I mean, they had to have shed a tear. I mean, if you didn't, then you really don't have a heart.
Well, I've never seen a crowd turn so fast You know, he came out Monday night and they were booing. And as soon as he started that story, they turned around instantly. Tears in men's eyes, women's eyes, kids' eyes. Then they started the thank you Roman chant. I've never seen a crowd turn around from that fake, we hate him, boo, because that's all bullshit anyways. They don't really hate him. They're just trying to be playing along for themselves. They amuse themselves. It's like they did with John Cena and all the other. They don't really hate him. I mean, Roman Reigns is the number one freaking merchandise seller for the last 18 months. They don't hate him. But they like to play along. But I've never seen a crowd turn around from that fake hate to respecting what he's going through and showing their love for him. It's unbelievable.
Because everybody realized, you know what, this isn't a show anymore.
When reality meets fantasy, it's nice to see that there are actually compassionate and caring human beings out there. And I question that for real when it comes to wrestling fans, because there's some cynical pieces of shit that claim to be wrestling fans that do nothing but watch the show to criticize and knock down something they don't even understand. If you watch wrestling and you don't enjoy it, then first of all, why are you watching it? Second of all, why are you watching it?
Also, some people are really bad with it. Like, they sound like they have so much, like, legit hate for it. Like, they have no love whatsoever.
You know, I have never watched the show more than once that I didn't like. Ever. I don't like football. I don't like any other sports. I don't watch sports. But I don't sit there and go, well, the Dallas Cowboys suck, or they suck, this sucks. I just don't care. I don't watch it. I respect what they do. I'm not going to sit there and say this guy sucks, that guy sucks. I know what has to go through to be there, I know the hard work they put in. So it's not my place to rag on them when I'm sitting there on my couch guzzling Mountain Dew, which, by the way, I just opened another one.
Oh, hey. I love all the flavors. I've drank every flavor.
Oh, not me. Oh. Now you're pushing a button.
You stick with the original.
The original is Mountain Dew. Everything else is a bastardization of the legendary lime-tasting, throat-burning Mountain Dew. That's Mountain Dew. The rest are just bastards.
How do you feel about the throwback Mountain Dew? Like the
I don't like that either.
You don't like?
I thought I would because, real sugar. Blah. I'm just so used to the other, so I stick to it.
The original,
not diet either.
Yeah, the original Green Monster.
Right. That's my favorite. Ice cold. It burns the throat. Anything. I won't even touch the other ones. I don't want to give them the money. It's not fair. Hey, riding off the Mountain Dew name.
I understand. Me, I've explored, all of them just because I'm curious what they had out there. But yeah, I understand. Sometimes you just want to stick to that traditional.
Yeah, that's me. That's I shouldn't be drinking it at all because I'm trying to lose weight, but I have good days and bad.
That's my problem too. So far, I've lost 50 pounds. I'm trying to lose 100.
Yeah, me too. My congratulations.
It's hard.
I've lost 29 since September 1st, and I got another 80 to go before I wrestle again. Or I'm calling sick.
You'll get there. Just keep working at it. Keep working at it. But after 6 months of training, you had your first match. Who did you have? Do you remember who you had your first match against and where?
I don't remember his full name. I know his name was Will. He was a little guy, a little pudgy guy. But we worked. It's the only match I ever practiced. We went to this school every Malenko had training on Tuesdays, Thursdays, in one school in Tampa, and then in a place called Plant City, which is about 20 miles or so west or north of Tampa, whatever. He had school on Saturday and Sundays at a different place, at a barn, out at some friend of his house. And I went there too. But we went to the school, we practiced from the very beginning of that match to the end, over and, lock up, blah, blah, blah. It was only like a 10-minute match. He wrestled, the guy had a mask on, his name was the Masked Terror. There's actually pictures of it on my Facebook. But it was a match at the Moose Lodge in Tampa, and the ring was set up outside by a lake, and the people sat around the ring in lawn chairs, and I got paid $20 and all the barbecue I could eat.
Oh.
So, and I was the first match of the show, and then I was the baby face, and I turned on the guy at the end. But then the second match I had, that was like a week later, and I got paid $50, and I was in the semi-main event with a guy named Lord Tom Laxton, who was like Cactus Jack of his day. Before Cactus Jack was even in the business, this guy was nuts. I mean, taking those crazy bumps like a madman. But a hilarious, fun guy. and I was in the semi-main event against the Malenkos. So that's that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that is cool. Definitely. Once you got through the training and the matches over there, what was your next move in your career? Where was the first place that actually picked you up to hire you on professionally, and how did it come about?
Well, for the first, let's see, 81, 82. Malenko actually got TV started in 82 in Tampa. He got a guy to fund some TV. I think it was the guy who actually had the ring by his barn. And we did like several weeks of TV at a place in Tampa. That was the first time I ever got to go on TV. It was like 1982, and it was a group called IWWA. I still actually have the copy of the first check they wrote for me. And I was in I got the Malenkos were there always, so I got to work with them, which was always fantastic. I mean, the great Malenko himself is one of the best ever, and Dean Malenko and Joe Malenko, his sons, Dean Malenko, are incredible.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to work with them over and over, But that show didn't last long. And, of course, we always had independent shows back then. And back then, unlike today, where you can just, message somebody and go, hey, man, I heard you got a show coming up. Can I get on it? But you would go to indie shows back then, and then you kind of network yourself there. If you did good, some guy would say, hey, man, we got a show next month. You want to be on it? And then it would just kind of go from there, and you get your name out there. And, I worked independents for a long time. And then Malenko got a couple other TV shows, along the way that I was always involved in. And then in 86, I was out at the school practicing with somebody, whoever, at the place where the barn was, right? And a guy who had worked a lot of Malenko shows and all the independent shows also wrestled for Championship Wrestling. His name was Louis Estea. Championship Wrestling from Florida was the NWA territory here in Florida in those days. I'm sure you don't know that. Maybe you do. I don't know. But that's the main company that ran Florida. Championship Wrestling from Florida. It was like, legendary.
Mm-hmm.
And Lewis came to the school. It was like we were there in the morning, Lewis, and said, hey, they need somebody to wrestle at the Eddie Graham Sports Complex, which was the Sunday night stop every Sunday night for years for Championship Wrestling from Florida. And I'm like, well, I'll do it, And Lewis said, okay, because Lewis knew me, he knew I was capable. And so I drove all the way home because I lived 100 miles from the school. That's another thing. I drove over 100 miles to and from the school every day I went there.
That's dedication.
Huh?
That's dedication right there.
Yeah, and the first few years, the interstate wasn't even open. I had to take all the back roads, but it was all worth it.
Yeah.
But when I would go to the school, I never brought my trunks with me. I always bring my boots because you're an idiot not to have boots, and I hate watching kids today that don't wear boots. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
The first day in the Great Malenko told us when we got to school is he said you're gonna need knee pads and you're gonna need boots. Here's where you get the boots. There's where you get the knee pads. And guess what I did? I ordered my boots, and I couldn't wait to get them. I couldn't wait to wear them. As soon as I got them, I put them on. I walk around everywhere with them before I even went to the school. I was a professional wrestler. I wanted to be a professional wrestler. What the hell wouldn't you want boots? But anyways, I drove all the way home that Sunday, got my trunks, packed in a bag, and drove all the way to Orlando, which was a 3-hour drive for me. And I'm going to a place where I didn't know anybody except Lewis, thank God. But it was great. I got in there, and I was going to wrestle a guy named Jerry Gray, Golden Boy Jerry Gray, who went on to become one of my best friends, where we became the tag team champions of Florida even. But, Jerry didn't know me from Adam. I'm here I am at the Eddie Graham Sports Complex. There's 5,000 people there, the biggest crowd I ever worked in front of. And I'm wrestling Jerry, and we're just talking a couple of things for the match. And he's like, can you do that? Can you do that? And yeah, I can do that, because he didn't know me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We went out there and had a great match, and we were friends ever since, and are still friends.
Oh, that's great.
And that's from there. That was a Sunday, and then of course there you are. You're there with the guys. You're getting to meet, all the real legends. Flair, everybody. Because it's Florida wrestling, and they're like, hey, can you do TV Wednesday morning? Which they did the TV tapings at the Sportatorium in Tampa at like 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning. I was like, yeah, I can do it. So there I go there. And then like, hey, can you work Miami Wednesday night? Because after TV on Wednesday mornings, you had to drive all the way to Miami, which was like a 5-hour drive to get to the Miami Beach Convention Center. Yeah, I can do that. So that was how that started,
Oh, so it just kind of kept coming.
Yeah, and then, because they had weekly stops back then. I mean, you had your TV on, they taped it on Wednesday mornings, and then it would air throughout the week, depending on wherever it was going to be in the state. Fort Myers, Miami, they all aired, Saturdays, Sundays, whenever they aired, but, local to the stations or to the areas you were going to wrestle. But every week, every day of the week, you had a place to go. Miami Wednesday, West Palm Beach Thursday, spot shows on Saturday and Friday and Saturday, which was like different buildings. Sunday was, like I said, what did I just say? Sunday was Eddie Grant Sports Complex. Monday was like Jacksonville. Tuesday was Tampa. Wednesday was Miami again. And back to West. So it was every day, night of the week you got to work. I didn't always work every night of the week, but you had that opportunity. And there were times you did,
And I assume throughout all this, all these shows that you're working, and I got to throw this in just because it goes, with the show and things I've been doing on here. I assume throughout all these shows, Mr. Bill Otten was taking your photographs.
I mean, I can't say he was, but I know he was there a lot of times because he was the guy who actually, a lot of his pictures showed up in the weekly program that they would sell at. You look at some of the old programs, photos by Bill Otten.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say he ever took pictures of me, but I mean, I have no claim to be a big star, nothing like that, but I was part of the show. And I hate wrestling fans that degrade people who weren't in the main event. Newsflash, everybody can't be in the main event. In fact, most people aren't. Although I had been in the main event several times when I was the tag team champions with Jerry and I. We were the Mighty Yankees. Stupid name, but Mike Graham and Kevin Sullivan gave it to us, so we're not arguing. We wore masks, and we were the champions. We beat Mike Graham and Steve Kern for the titles, and we were in the main events a lot of times against Mike and Steve, Kevin, and Bugsy, different people,
Yeah.
But I hate that mentality that fans have. He was just a jobber because he loses on TV. That's bullshit.
No, exactly.
I hate that. I hate that word. I hate the word enhancement talent. I despise people who use it.
Because you know what? Everybody's got to have their part.
Exactly, and I've always told young wrestlers I try to teach, I say, man, just work as hard as you can to get where you think you want to go, but always be appreciative just to be there.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in the first match. I mean, there were times where I was in the first match. It doesn't matter if you're in the first match. There has to be a first match. It has to be a second. It has to be a third. It has to be a main. Everybody has to be there, and they all have to do their part. But for that few minutes, if you're wrestling in front of 10,000 people and you're in the first match, for that 10, 15, 20 minutes you're in there, you're the guy. They're watching you. They're reacting to you. Nothing else matters in the world.
Exactly.
Like Terry Funk had a great saying where he said, "It only stops hurting when it only hurts when I stop wrestling."
And that's like the mentality I tried to bring to this podcast because I'm sure about other podcasts out there. Other podcasts, they'll go just for the big main guys, or like say they would have had to wrestle for WWE, or they would have had to wrestle here or there, or they would have to be a main guy. With me, you know what? I try to get anybody that was a part of it, anybody that contributed to the business to come here and be a part of this. And that's how I even ended up meeting Bill. When I found him, and I'm like, oh, photographer, this is cool. Let's get a view and perspective from a person behind the camera.
I mean, Bill's been there forever. He's taking pictures of the legends, no matter who it was that was there.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a part.
But I just hate the wrestling fans who they look at you as you're some type of like lower leg. Because I worked for WCW for 6 years. Almost every week I was on their TV. Yeah, I didn't win. Okay, I won once, but I didn't even want to do that. But the point is, I was getting paid, I was having fun, and I was wrestling everybody you could imagine. I mean, I was in the ring with Jerry Lawler, Ric Flair, Terry Funk, Dory Funk. I was wrestling all the legends, and I don't give a shit what any fan thinks. They can sit at ringside and mock or say whatever they want, but they're sitting at ringside. I wrestled all the legends, and that's not ego talking. That's somebody who loved the business, was proud to be there, and simply did my part. Knew my place, did what I was told, never had a bad day, other than the times I got hurt. But I was always treated with respect. I was never beat up. I was never stretched. I was never treated poorly, whether I worked for WWF, WCW, Memphis. Everybody always treated me good.
I even watched a match, actually, on YouTube of you and Sting. in
Oh,
WCW.
jeez.
I saw that,
Now, I'm not saying the matches were the best. I'm simply saying that no one ever hurt me on purpose, although Ron Simmons blacked my eye once. I don't think he did it on purpose. But the point is, no one hurt me, no one disrespected me, and I had the time of my life. So I don't see how you could look down on that.
You can't. You really can't. You know, you're living the dream. You're living the dream.
Now, there are guys back in the day, and even probably today, that deserve to be called jobbers. You can go back and watch old TV shows from TBS or whatever, and guys in the ring that don't even know how to hit the ropes, take a bump. Those kind of guys I consider jobbers. Mm-hmm. But I've always thought, if the guys you're working with thought you could work and thought you were good, they're going to treat you the same way they would treat the big stars, and that's how they treated me.
Yeah.
First time I ever wrestled Sting, he was nice as could be. Never, everything was easy. And I wrestled him so many times after that. And I'd sit in the dressing room with him, and he'd put his makeup on, and I'd tell him what we're going to do, and he'd do whatever I said. He didn't care. I mean, my job was to make him look good. So I didn't go in there and say, well, I'm going to do this and do that. No, it was I'm going to do this and do that, but everything I did was to coincide with making him look good. And he would just go along with it. That's how cool he was. Wow. He'd put his makeup on, and he goes, yeah, that sounds good, that sounds good. And one time he saved my ass from getting chewed out by Bill Watts, if you want to hear that story, but...
Oh, sure, go ahead. Tell it.
Bill Watts took over running WCW for a while, and I love Bill Watts. He was super cool to me. He's actually the guy who started the Bob Cook's Got the Best Punch in Wrestling stuff. He's the guy who did that. But this is when he first came in. I was wrestling Sting, and I was in a dressing room talking to Sting what we're going to do. I used to like to do comedy things once in a while where I would come out and I'd jump over the top rope and show people I could do it. That's what a real athlete could do, blah, blah, blah. And then as the match progresses, I'd go out, get knocked outside the ring, come back in and try to jump over the top rope and catch my foot and trip and fall in the ring. And I'd do that, I'd like get knocked out of the ring and come back in real fast and catch my foot on the second rope and fall on my face again, turn around, double head knocker and fall out of the ring again, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling Sting, we should do that. We should do that. And Michael Hayes is sitting there next to us. He goes, I love the comedy too, but Watts is going to hate it. And Sting goes, the hell with Watts. So we go out in the ring, and we do it. It worked great, right? We come back, and Watts goes, what the hell was all that comedy shit? Who called that? And Sting goes, I called it. And Watts goes, oh, well, don't do it again, okay? So he didn't yell at Sting, and he didn't yell at me because Sting saved my ass.
Wow, you know what? That's a true good guy right there.
Yeah, he was always cool. Everybody was for the most part. I mean, there's a couple of guys I hated. I hated Vader. Vader was an asshole. I hated Buzz Sawyer. But other than that, most of the guys were... Matt Vaughn was a dick. But most of the guys were cool.
And, it sounds, too, like the way you worked with these legends. See, because I don't know, because I know there's a lot of rumors online in the internet wrestling world. I hear so many things, but it's like, at least from what I hear of today, that the business, is very ego-driven. Like, everybody they want to be the one to get ahead. They're the ones that want to look good. I don't know if that's true or if that's false or not, but that's just what I hear. And it sounds like with you, it didn't matter to you if you look good or if you got ahead. You just wanted to go in there and actually do your job and make your opponent look good and do the right thing.
Well, I mean, I liked looking good, and I don't necessarily mean looking good like I'm looking good, but when you go out there and do what you're supposed to do right in the eye, I don't care about the wrestling fans. They see you getting thrown around, and they're going, Sting's beating him, yeah, But in the eyes of the guys in the back, when you're going out there and you're doing your hip tosses super high, and you're going as high as you can on those backdrops, and you're coming up and taking a drop kick to the face, and you're taking that bump, and you're going outside the ring, and you're coming back in, you're making that guy look good. So in the eyes of the people who matter, which are the wrestlers, I don't care and never have care what the fans think. It's what my peers think of me and the thought of me is what mattered most to me. And I'm friends with some of the biggest names in the business. Brian Blair is a good friend of mine, Fred Altman, Terry Funk. And they all respect me and think highly of me and have told me personally. And that means more to me than any dipshit fan sitting in the front row scratching their ass that they haven't cleaned in 3 weeks. And that's the God's honest truth. Now, I have a lot of people who I know that like me, wrestling fans. I mean, not a lot, what I'm saying, and respect me. But I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, I care more about what my peers think than any wrestling fan ever thought, if that makes any sense.
It does, because that's the way you should really think. You're thinking the right way. It's all about... Because
at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like, I'll see people say, like, okay, Dick Slater died recently. And he was one of the best, man. I love Dick Slater. He was always cool to me, always fun to work with, a blast to hang out with. And I saw some fan go, oh, man, one of the most underrated guys in the business. I was like, underrated by who? Everybody in the business respected Dick Slater. Everybody in the business knew he was great. Everybody in the business knew he was a legitimate badass. That's not underrated. That's respect. If the fans think he's underrated, guess what? Fuck you. We don't care what the fans think.
Yeah, because it's about the peers.
Listen to this. I'm opening another do. Oh, good Lord.
Oh, there you go.
I bought a 24-pack. I got to have a few left over for the show Sunday.
yeah, you got to have a few left over for Evolution. That's right.
Because of these idiots, unlike these idiots that we're just talking about, which we refer to as wrestling fans, but we really mean dipshit, mutant, miscreant, humanoid pieces of waste of the midway, people like that, who probably will just watch the show to complain, oh, geez, Nikki Bella against Ronda Rousey. Oh, geez, they should have put this. Oh, geez, they should have done that. Oh, geez, Trish Stratus is too old. Oh, geez, Lita's too ugly. Oh. I'm going to watch the show with my friends, a couple of them who are old wrestling buddies. We're going to have a good time. Guess what? That's what pay-per-views are for. They're to have a good time with your friends. They're to have, food, good drinks. No alcohol because none of us drink. Mm-hmm. But good food, good friends, great wrestling. That's what it's about. It's not about bitching and moaning and overanalyzing and thinking this guy should have done that and this guy should. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm blown up.
Hey, that's what this is for. You know what? It's like I always tell my guests, and I'm going to tell you this now. Even though my name's on the show, when my guest comes on here, like how you're on here right now, this is not my show. It's your show.
Oh, well, I just want people to know, regardless of what they might, because I've done shows before, and people go, oh, he sounds bitter. If you think I sound bitter, you're crazy. I can look you in the eye and tell you that I loved every second of my time in wrestling. I can't say every second. Obviously, there's downsides to everything. But by and large, the good outweighed the bad 10-1. And if I was able to live my life over and do it exactly the same way, even with the pitfalls, I would do it in a heartbeat. And another thing that I could mention is I was given 4 chances in WCW to do more than I did, and I blew each and every one of them. And it was my fault. Unlike a lot of these old, bitter wrestlers who have nothing, I take responsibility for my own shortcomings.
Yeah, you don't blame anybody, you just...
Right. Dusty Rhodes gave me 4 chances to do better, and I screwed each and every one of them up. Because of...
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Because of
I was just going to say, I screwed every one of them up because of complacency, laziness, maybe when I was afraid to succeed. I don't know why. But he gave me chances to do more, and every time it was always like, but I want you to get in a little better shape, Bobby, because he always just call me Bobby. And I go, okay, Dusty, I'll do it. And the next week, I'm drinking my Mountain Dew. I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to do. And I blew every chance. But it's my own fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, though. It's hard. It's hard to sometimes, get out of that... that complacency or whatever.
I never thought what I was doing was anything bad. You have some fans that just look at it like, geez, I've seen 3 of his matches on TV. Never won a match. Yeah, big freaking deal. When I can sit there in a dressing room with Terry Funk, with Ric Flair, with Jerry Lawler, with Sting, with the Road Warriors, with all these legends, and they treat me like I'm one of them, that means the world to me. Anybody who would think otherwise is an idiot.
Exactly. You know what? You've done more than any fan that is trying to put you down has ever dreamt of doing.
I mean, most don't. I mean, you'll have people that they don't know you, or maybe you were just a job or whatever. I hate that, but it's their, they can say what they want, but I just don't look at it that way. And I know a lot of guys. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys that were doing the TV back then. One of the guys that's coming over Sunday was someone who used to go to do WCW with me. And we never looked at it as anything but we're happy to be there,
Yeah.
God, one of the worst things that could happen is when you go to Jody Hamilton, who was the original assassin, who was the guy who would book TV every week, and you'd ask him, hey, do you need us next week? And that once out of every once in a while, you go, no, we don't need you next week. You're like, oh, shit, You had one week where you had to sit home with your freaking wife wishing you were dead. And then you get that call to go back, and you're right there on the road with a smile on your face.
What was I again? Oh, did you ever get a chance, because talking about WCW and you worked there with a lot of the legends, did you ever get to wrestle The Undertaker when he was going under Mean Mark Callis?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Actually, there was a match on YouTube. I don't know, it was like a handicap match or something. Me and Pat Rose, who was an old friend, against him. And he was doing the Me and Mark thing. He was easy, nice guy. Didn't hurt you. That's the thing you'll hear stories about. Oh, man, the Road Warriors, the Steiners. I worked with them several times, and they never once hurt me. Rick Steiner gave me a fat lip once, but I know it was an accident.
Yeah, the guys that get roughed up, I'm assuming, they had to have done something wrong or done something that certain guys don't like if they're going to get roughed up, because they're not going to get roughed up for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, and there were times in those era, whatever, like I said, where some guys were undertrained, maybe shouldn't have been there. Technically, most of the times that was the guy's fault for saying, yeah, I'm experienced, and they go in the ring and find out they're not, and they beat them up. But, like, when I wrestled the Steiner brothers, I always had to take the Frankensteiner because Scott Steiner knew I wouldn't screw it up. And I saw him beat a guy up who screwed it up one night, and the guy came back to the dressing room, grabbed his stuff, we never saw him again.
No.
So, because I would never screw it up, he always would, I didn't mind, I don't care.
It's like, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a match once. It was me, the Iron Sheik, the Cuban Assassin, and Mike Awesome. I don't know if you know who Mike Awesome is.
Yep, I do.
He committed suicide a few years ago. And he was wearing a mask that I used to wear, but he was wearing the mask because he didn't want his, he wasn't in ECW. This is long before that. But it was Mike Awesome with my mask, the Iron Sheik, the Cuban Assassin, and me against the Steiner brothers and the Road Warriors as the main event on one of the shows. I mean, how freaking cool is that?
That's you can't get no better.
And I had to take the loss with a belly-to-belly by Rick Steiner, but guess who didn't care? Me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had the time of my life. Lose, win, I was there, and I loved it. And I miss it every day, as silly as that sounds.
Hey, you know what? I don't blame you. Especially back then, in those days. To me, those were the best days in the business.
I mean, I miss everything about it. I miss the road. I miss the camaraderie, the parties afterwards. There was a bar at the Ramada Inn by the airport because the woman who ran the hotel was friends with a lot of the wrestlers, and she loved the wrestlers. She hung around with us, and she gave us a great rate, like $25 a night or something for a room.
Oh.
But we all partied in the bar. There was times in that bar where you had Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan yelling to TV because their baseball game wasn't going right. You had Bobby Eaton and Arn Anderson, having court in a corner somewhere. You had Harley Race going around zapping people with stun guns. You had Barry Windham and Magnum T.A. laughing in the corner. You had Brian Pillman's raspy voice yelling in the other corner. You had Ric Flair dancing on the table naked. That's freaking hilarious and awesomeness.
Oh, you know what? That's like a golden time, You
it was amazing. And you had women everywhere.
Oh, I could imagine, especially with all those guys around. Oh.
Unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they were all over those guys.
Yeah, and guess who also got benefits? It was just a great time.
Yeah, everybody got benefits. You did, all the guys did.
Yeah, I mean, I think back of all the good times, scary times too, but good times.
Was that was WCW? Was that one of your favorite period in your career working for them?
I don't know. I mean, I had so many different times where Florida wrestling was fun because I grew up on Florida wrestling. So for me to one of the biggest thrills of my life was to wrestle on their TV show, go home and watch me on that TV show that Saturday morning, and Gordon Soley, for God's sake, is calling my match. That was like, holy crap. This is me on wrestling, and Gordon Soley is calling my match. That was one of the biggest thrills of my life.
Oh, Gordon Soley, too. He was so amazing.
And then, of course, because you were in the business that long, and I got to become good friends with Gordon. I'm still good friends with his son, Gennard. I talked to him for an hour yesterday. He lives like an hour from me. And he's got a lot of cool stuff coming up. He discovered 200 hours of old film he had of his dad that no one knows about, which is going to be awesome.
Oh, that's going to be fantastic.
But, I mean, just those little things like that was so much fun. And when Jerry and I were the tag team champions, I mean, that was a blast. I mean, we were in wrestling, I have a picture on my Facebook where I was like Kevin Sullivan, Mike Graham, and Steve Kern wrestling, me and Jerry and a guy named Incubus, who also used to wrestle as Mighty Wilbur or something. He passed away a few years ago. But, we're like in the main event, It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like you had fun going out there no matter what place on the card you were, but I'm sure that main event, that had to feel like a little extra special treat, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it definitely was always extra because you get more of a reaction, obviously, because we're wrestling Mike Graham and Steve Kerr. They're legends in Florida. Kevin Sullivan, legends in Florida. And they're all incredibly over with the fans, and they're all freaking great. None of them will hurt you. Every night was not only fun, but you learned something,
Yeah.
And they all were willing to teach you. They never talked down to you. I mean, it's just an amazing time. And even like I did Memphis for a short time, and that was a blast. When I got to wrestle Jerry Lawler, for God's sakes, on Memphis TV. Can you believe that? And after the match, Jerry Lawler said, "You got a hell of a punch there, kid." Jerry Lawler told me that.
Wow.
And he's got the greatest punch of all. He got me going. I'm getting excited.
That's a top compliment right there, especially when it comes to a punch.
Oh, Jerry Lawler's the best puncher of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and you're getting that sort of a compliment about your punch from basically the punch master.
Right. I mean, I got to knock down Jerry Lawler on Memphis TV with Lance Russell calling the action, another legend. And that's a funny story too, if you want to hear it, how that match even came about. But that was just one of my funnest times, and it wasn't long. It wasn't like major match, but it was there.
Sure.
And I can say I had it. No one else, very few people can.
I would love to hear about it. You could tell it.
I mean, it's not a big story, but back in those days, we were working for WCW, so we were on the road every week. And this one week, there was like a layover. We were like in St. Louis, and then we had like the weekend off, and then back to doing TV in Atlanta like on Monday or something. So I was traveling with a guy named Dave Penzer. I don't know if you know who Dave is. He was a ring announcer for TNA and WCW.
Yep.
And I think he's got his own podcast too. But and a guy named John Allen, who's no longer with us. But we were at WCW. Are we working? No.
Yeah, we're on.
Okay. We were at WCW, and I was walking by Pat Rose, who was talking to Jerry Lawler. I heard him say, "What's up, Kingfish?" And that's what a lot of guys would call Lawler. And I just stopped and went, "Are you talking to Lawler?" He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Why?" He's like, "Well, I'm trying to get booked for TV in Memphis," because they did TV on Saturday mornings in Memphis. And so we'd be coming right through there, So I was like, "Man, can you get us booked?" Me and Johnny goes, "Oh, yeah, I can get you booked." And he hung up, and so we're booked for TV, right? And Pat guaranteed me, he said, "Yeah." I said, can you get me a match with Lawler?" And Pat's like, "Yeah, I can do it. I can do it." So I'm thinking, "Oh, that's awesome, right?" And, for TV back then, for Memphis, you only got $25. So it's, big deal, right?
You know what? In this case, it's not really about the money. It's about the experience.
Right. So and I'd worked in Memphis in 87 and 88. Me and Jerry Gray, we were the Mighty Yankees, and we worked there for a little while where we got the win and all that. Yeah, we didn't always lose. That's actually on YouTube. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh, we get to the Memphis TV show, right? So I'm thinking in my mind, okay, I'm working with Lawler, that's great. And John Allen, he didn't know who he was working, right? So, and the Moondogs were there at that time, and they were killing guys, hitting them with garbage cans and chairs. They're really bashing some of the losers up. And I'm calling them losers. But we're sitting there, right, in this room, whatever, and Pat comes in. Or not Pat, someone comes in and says who we're working. And goes, "Yeah, John, you're working the Moondogs," and somebody else, right? So John's like, "Oh, shit," And then, and he's like, "Bob, you're working so-and-so, right?" It's like, "Oh, jeez. I don't want to work this." I wanted to work Lawler, right? Sitting there with Dave and John, I go, "Man, we're only getting $25. Let's get the hell out of here. What do we care if we burn this bridge? We're not going to come back. We're going on down the road. It's only $25. And John's like, "Yeah, let's go," right? So we're getting ready to leave. Pat Rose comes in, and he goes, how you guys doing? I go, I'm not working Lawler. And he goes, oh, geez, well, hang on a second. I told him, I said, we're going to leave. And he's like, oh, no, don't do that. Hang on. He comes back and he goes, it's you and me against Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett. And I looked at John and I said, well, John, it is $25. I don't think we should throw away $25, should we? And he's like, oh, you son of a bitch. Because I got my way and got to work Lawler. He still had to get killed by the Moondogs. But, 5 minutes before that, I was like, let's get out of here. It's only $25. And then he's back, and I'm actually working Lawler. And I was like, yeah, we don't want to throw away $25. Yeah.
No, let's do it.
So, even though it wasn't a long match, and actually the Moondogs came in and attacked Lawler and Jarrett towards the end of our match, so we didn't actually lose, have to get beat, which I wouldn't have cared. But I got to knock Lawler down, and I got to take his punches and take bumps off him, and it was light as a feather, and it's freaking awesome.
Oh, yeah. That's you can't get no better. You really can't.
No, that's the thing the fans don't understand, that most of the guys just love being part of the business, no matter where they're. Obviously, would people would like to be in different positions, make more money, blah, blah, blah. And when we were the Florida Tag Team Champions, and when you're up more on the card, you make more money. We had double pay back then, a big deal. But, yeah, man, I have no regrets.
And you know what? That's the best way to go about it. You know what? Have no regrets. It sounds like you went through your whole career just enjoying every bit of it, and that's how it should be.
You had times like anything where you're hurt, you're tired, you wish you could go home. But then as soon as you get home, you're like, geez, let's get the hell out of here, Couldn't wait to get back on the road. And we weren't just doing, when you did WCW, you do like Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday TV, 3 in a row. You go home for a day. And then on the weekends, you'd be doing independent shows all over Florida or wherever you could get them. And then right back on the road again. So you're staying busy.
And you know what? Staying busy, especially in working shows, you couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, when you would work independent shows back then, a lot of the people would put, a WCW superstar, because you were on TV, so they'd just take advantage of whatever they could. And with WCW, you had to drive everywhere, but they paid for the rent-a-cars and paid for the gas, so it was no big deal. I'd rather drive than fly.
Yeah, you know what? Driving is better. It is better.
When we worked for the WWF, they paid for the air. They flew us everywhere and still paid for our cars and hotels. And they paid more money, and they gave you cash, whereas WCW would send you checks. You could get a draw each night, like $100 or whatever, and then you get the rest of your money in a check. But it all came out to be freaking awesome, man. Is anybody listening? It's freaking awesome.
Oh, yeah, we got people in here. How did working for WWF come about?
I don't know if you ever heard of the old tag team, the Heavenly Bodies, with Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard. They were for a while. And then Tom Pritchard went on to be a tag team with Chris and Candido. I think they were called the Body Donists in WWF.
Yep.
But in 95, Jimmy Backlund, well, I call him Jimmy Backlund because that's what he was here in Florida, but he was Jimmy Del Rey when he was the Heavenly Bodies, and Jim Cornette was their manager. But anyways, he called me and said, hey, do you want to do TV for WWF? And I was like, sure, And that's all it was.
And then you just went on and did it.
Yeah, I got to work on Monday Night Raw. I got several times.
Yeah, actually, here,
I even have a horrible match on Monday Night Raw with Doink the Clown, but
I'll put the
still we got paid for it.
I'll put the thumbnail up on the screen here so people could see it bigger, to where it's just that picture alone. There's Bob, which is actually, this is the thumbnail for the video. That's why the title's on it. But as you can see, there's Bob on Monday Night Raw there in all his glory.
You think back on those days and the people you got to work with. Some better than others, but I got to work with the British Bulldog, who was a jerk, and Lex Luger, who was cool. I worked with Luger a lot back in WCW and other places, but in WWF, I worked with Luger and the Bulldog in a tag match. But I got to work with the Smoking Guns and Bam Bam Bigelow and a whole bunch of guys. The 1-2-3 Kid, who I've known ever since he was a kid. You know who he is, right? Or Sean Waltman.
Yep, X-Pac, Sean Waltman, yep.
Yeah, he was a friend of mine before he even got into business. He used to go to shows with me when he was just a kid.
Wow.
And he was trained by the great Malenko, and then, he was a fantastic student. He had a great he did a lot of stuff that people didn't do back in those days, all that flying, and he was fantastic, and he got noticed, and he became a star, you know.
Yeah, and then
but I've known him forever.
Next thing you know, he was with the Clique.
Right. So everything worked out for him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's got his own podcast now, too.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but like on Twitter, it'll pop up that he's saying something.
Yeah, so many guys.
Yeah, I saw him at the Cauliflower Alley Club this year. He gave me a big hug. But, yeah, I've known him forever.
Oh, nice. And
I even worked with him. I got to work with him on WWF. I think I just said that, but actually, he got a tryout match in WCW. When I worked for WCW, they used to use me a lot for tryout matches to see if guys were any good. Like Marcus Bagwell came in and he had his tryout match with me, and we had a really good match. Even after the match, Arn Anderson goes, "I'm still not finished." But we had a really good match, and Marcus got his job. And I'm not saying I had anything to do with it. I'm just saying they would do that in the matches, however the matches would go, and to get a look at the guy. And they did that with me several times. And one of the matches was with Shawn, and it actually made the Japanese wrestling magazine because Shawn was doing Japan at that point. He didn't get his job in WCW, but we had a really good match.
Yeah, and Marcus Bagwell, actually, it's interesting that you bring him up. He was actually a guest on my show about a year ago.
Yeah, cool.
Marcus was on here, and we talked about some stuff as well, so it's interesting that you bring him up. And
I worked with him several times. Really nice guy.
Did you ever get to work with Del Wilkes? Because I interviewed him, and I'll tell you, Del Wilkes is a great guy.
No, I never actually even met him that I can remember.
Because I know he was in WCW with Marcus.
Yeah, I don't remember. I quit working for them in '94, so I don't know when he came in, but I'm just saying that, Marcus was a good guy and, deserved his spot. There's a funny story, though. They had me work with this guy, I won't say his name, but, and, most of the guys would treat you with respect, right? They're nice to you. Like, Marcus was just a nice kid. He was like, yeah, I appreciate you doing it. But I go in the dressing room, and Magnum T.A. and Mike Graham are sitting there, and this guy I'm going to work with in the tryouts there, and Magnum goes, "Well, this is Bob. This is who you're working with. He's the one who should be getting the tryout and getting a full-time job." But anyways, so he's putting me over. I'm like, "Yeah, makes you feel good, right?"
Oh yeah.
But this guy was a jerk. He walked around like he was arrogant. Acted like, we should be thankful he's there. That's what his attitude was. So I went in the ring and I ate him up. I made him look like shit and made myself look really good. No, I'm not a tough guy. Don't get me wrong. And if he probably wanted to go crazy and take advantage of me and beat me up for real, fine. But obviously, I would have definitely not got his job. But when you know wrestling and you know how to work, you go in there and you just go, right? You lock up with somebody, you grab the headlock first, you grabbed it first. The guy just goes with the flow. You take him over, he goes with the flow. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you're good enough, you can do that. So I just ate the guy up. I mean, I lock up with him. I do a headlock, hammerlock, drop to hold flow to his head. He'd go and get me in the hammerlock, and I'd jump up and spin around and schoolboy him. He'd kick out. I'd kick him when he comes at me, and I'd drop toe home and again get him. Just constantly making me look good, not giving him nothing because he was an asshole, and he didn't get his job.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. So yeah, the guys that were the assholes, you'd have the other guys pretty much just making them look like shit, and that way they don't get their job.
Right. You can go out there and you can make the guy look great, but you can also cut him off every time he tries to do something, unless he wants to fight you for real and make the whole match look bad. And I didn't make the match look bad. I just made me look like the aggressor. I made me look like the guy who knew what he was doing, rather than flying around for him, he goes to do something to me, I block it, because for every move, wrestling may be a show, but for every move, there's a counter, there's a reversal, there's an escape, and there's a way to do it. And if you don't go with the flow, you make the whole match look like a clusterfuck. So you go with the flow, and that's what everybody's trained to do, and he did that. He wasn't smart enough, or he didn't care enough to. And again, if he would have cut me off, I would have went with the flow, right? I would have sold whatever he was doing to me. But he didn't. I had the upper hand, so he just didn't get his job. And I think they realized that. They're like, "Oh, dude, Bob ate him up. Oh, fuck him. He don't deserve the job, And again, if he would have been cool like Marcus or any of the other guys that worked in tryouts, man, I would have went out there and did what I did for them.
Yeah.
But because he was a jerk, And again, I'm not a tough guy. And if he wanted to be an asshole and beat me up, he probably could have. But that doesn't get you anywhere in wrestling, you know. It's not my fault he doesn't know how to. I mean, I guarantee you, you know, they just went back, hey, good job, Bob. You know, Grizzly Smith, you know, he's like, hey, awesome, you know. But if he would have went in there and tried to beat me up, then they'd be like, what the hell's that, you know? So he would have been in the lose-lose no matter what.
That's true.
But again, I mean, that goes a long way. That's when it comes to ego. Like, I never had an ego in wrestling. I don't have any egos now. And I just loved my time. And I won't say I'm proud of everything I did. And I will go back and watch some of the matches and I'll go, geez, that sucked. This sucks. But I don't care. It is what it is now. But what people should understand is that I loved it. And most of the guys in the business did too.
I just got a text right now as we speak from Bill. And I know I mentioned it to you earlier, but I'm going to mention it on the air. He's like, don't forget to mention to Bob that I said he has a great punch.
Yeah, you know how that came about was, well, I mean, I never went out and claimed I had a great punch or whatever. I just punched how I punched. And I've always had a saying when it comes to wrestling, if you're training to be a wrestler, is to watch, copy, perfect. Watch guys that know what they're doing, copy how they do it, and perfect it as your own. Guys like Jerry Lawler, guys like Dick Murdoch, guys like Terry Funk, guys like Flair, guys that had unbelievable punches, or any moves in particular, you know? Like Harley Race had the best knee drop. Terry Funk had the best left-hand punch to the head. You know, Jerry Lawler had the best everything when it came to punching. Yep. You know, most guys only punch one way, right?
That's right.
Like if you watch Randy Savage, he had a great punch, but he had the jab and he had the punch to the forehead. Jerry Lawler, like if you're in a real fight, you don't usually punch the same way. Jerry Lawler had punch. I mean, he could do roundhouse rights, roundhouse lefts, left jabs, uppercuts, straight to your nose, straight to your forehead, mounted punches, and every single one of them looked good. Not every single time, you know, because everybody has off nights, but Jerry Lawler in his prime at his best, the best puncher in history. And when you put him in the ring with guys like Terry Funk and others, Bill Dundee, some of the most unbelievable, brutal-looking, realistic matches in history where they're not even touching each other. That's the art of wrestling.
Yep, to where they're not actually hurting each other.
Right. I hate that mentality that people have, especially wrestling fans, like, oh, the strong style, or they like guys that, you know, beat the crap out of you. That's ridiculous. That's not what wrestling is. From day one, the great Malenko told us, professional wrestling is an art. It is a work. You're working together to create the illusion that you're really wrestling. And if you're good enough, you can do that. And nobody likes a crowbar, which is the main thing, which a crowbar means somebody who's like stiff and, you know, hard. To me, the art was to make a punch look like you took the guy's head off and you barely touched him. Because there's no art in just punching somebody or being stiff with somebody like that big, fat, overbearing, obnoxious, pig-faced bastard Vader. I mean, he hurt guys all the time. And wrestling fans who are ignorant will sit there and watch that and have a big smile on their face. Oh, look at Vader's beating the shit out of that guy. Well, guess what? That's not wrestling. The guy's giving you your body. If you want to beat the shit out of a guy, join the UFC. Pro wrestling is not beating the shit out of the guy.
No, I don't know.
It's making it look like you're beating the shit out of the guy.
I don't know if it's something that you want to touch on. If you do, fine. If you don't, we'll move on. But I'm curious because, you know, I've heard... You know, I've talked to, you know, many different people, you know, over my time doing this, and, you know, I've heard good things about Vader, you know, for the majority, and...
good things?
Yeah, I've heard good things, you know, like, I've heard a couple people, you know, say that Vader was, you know, one of the good guys, and, I mean, when I met him by just meeting him as a fan, he was a good guy, but of course I never worked with him, so I don't know 100% what he was like. But now that you're bringing this to light, is there anything that you can mention on your own experiences with Vader?
Well, I could tell you, I mean, if you're talking about Vader in his later years, I mean, there's a time in everybody's life where they become humble, usually. You know, when they're no longer who they once were or who they once thought they were, they become humble. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. All the years I was around Vader, he was one of the biggest assholes I've ever met in my life. He hurt not only friends of mine, he hurt people every week in WCW to the point where they were telling him to stop hurting people. I mean, he hurt not just the TV guys either. He hurt a lot of the stars. like Steamboat and Sting and Nikita Koloff, and all those guys might say, oh, yeah, he was great because they made money with him. But when you're going on TV and being paid what you got paid, and it wasn't horrible pay, and he beats the crap out of you because you don't have any choice, what are you going to do to him? He's a big fat slob, and if you did something to him, he'd just beat you worse. But that's not wrestling. And he did it callously, and he did it on purpose. I have a friend who was at the TV one time, and nobody liked to work with Vader. There was times I actually saw guys look at the board and see their name against Vader and walk out of the building.
Wow.
Now, lucky for me, I had Jody Hamilton. He was a friend of mine, and he made sure I never had to work with Vader. I saw him at a place in Tampa. We did a fan fest last year, and I saw him for the first time in probably 20 years. I'm like, Jody, I just want to thank you again for never making me have to work that asshole Vader. He's like, oh, you're welcome, Bob. But this guy, Rick Flair, he had to work Vader, right? And he comes in the dressing room, and Vader's like, yeah, you'll be all right, blah, blah, blah. He goes in the ring, breaks his nose from the very second the bell rings. Oh. Blood everywhere. He comes back in the dressing room. Rick's laying on the floor trying to get the blood to stop. He looks down. He goes, yeah, you'll be okay. And he just walks away. No shit's given.
Oh.
That's Vader that I knew. Now, he could be the nicest guy in the world to other people. I don't know. I'm speaking of personal experience. One time I was coming back from the Waffle House at the Ramada where we used to stay, right? Coming back from the Waffle House to the Ramada, coming in. Mike Graham and Vader are coming in the hotel. Mike Graham saved my ass because Vader's drunk. And they're talking about, yeah, we just got thrown out of a bar for fighting. And I was drunk too. And I was like, oh, man, I wish I was there. And Vader grabs me and goes, you want to fight, asshole? And Mike Graham's like, Bob. He's like, Leon, he's Bob. He's one of the boys, you fucking asshole. And he, like, turned him down. That's the kind of asshole he was.
Wow.
But he was always getting in trouble with the office. That's why they put Harley Race with him, because he was afraid of Harley. So he would, Harley kind of kept him in line. I could tell you a story. Hopefully no one will hear, but it's a true story. One time, after the shows, all of us guys, us losers, because we didn't make as much money as the big stars, we'd go to the local liquor store and buy a giant cheap bottle of vodka, drink a lot in a room and go down to the bar, buy a drink, and then go up to a room and refill our glasses and go back down, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So and all of us guys, we stayed in several rooms on the same floor, and, when it was time to party, you had all the people with you, the women, whatever, and you'd leave your doors open, and we'd all just go to room and blah, blah, blah. But one night we're sitting there, and Vader comes in our room, and we got our bottle of vodka sitting there. He's like, oh, I'll show you losers how to drink. He grabs the bottle of vodka and guzzles it. Passes out on our bed. And we're sitting there like, we got this big fat freaking guy laying on our bed, passed out drunk, right? So we had to call Harley. And nobody really wanted to because, and Harley was always cool to me. I'm just saying nobody, so we call Harley at like 2 in the morning. Harley, Vader's in our room and he's passed out. And he's like, God damn it, that son of a bitch. He's going to get fired. I told that son of a blah, all that crap.
Yeah.
Harley comes in the room. He starts slapping Vader across the face, throwing water on him. Vader's waking up. Whoa, 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 whoa. And I swear to God, Harley had him by the ear, and he's leading the 450-pound mastodon, big-ass Van Vader, out of the room while saying, you stupid son of a bitch. I told you were going to get fired. You stupid motherfucker. And he just, and all of us guys are just like, that was the coolest thing we've ever seen, because we all hated the fat fuck, And then later that night, like 2 hours later, we were over at the Waffle House. We all come back, and Vader's in the lobby of the hotel, pushing furniture, yelling, who called Vader, or who called Harley? Which one of you assholes called Harley? Of course, we scattered like roaches. Like, whoa, shit, Not only is he back awake, he's raging, I wish we would have had cell phones back then, because that would have been classic.
Oh, yeah, get that on video or recording that. Oh.
Right. I mean, I say of all the times in wrestling, if I have any regrets, it's not being there the night that Paul Orndorff beat Vader's ass wearing flip-flops. I would have relished in that sight.
Oh, really?
The story alone gets me goosebumps.
Was that on TV, or was that like a shoot fight between the two?
No, that was a shoot fight in the dressing room where Paul was one of the agents, and Vader was late, and he was supposed to do an interview, and they're like, hey, Paul wants to do an interview, and he's kind of like, fuck Paul, and Paul got wind of it, and well, you know what happened.
Yeah.
Because Paul was like, even though he had that paralyzation of his arm, or whatever, but Paul was a legitimate badass, you know. Vader was just a big fat ass. Total different between a badass and a fat ass. Get it?
Yep. Yep.
But again, anybody who's listening who maybe they've met Vader and Vader was a nice little, he was like a pussycat. He hardly even touched me when he shook his hand. Guess what? 20 years ago, 30 years ago is different than 2 years before you die of a heart condition. You're a different person. You find God or whatever it is that gets you through the night. I'm talking about my own personal experience along with many of the other boys from that era that just didn't like the guy.
No.
Like Buzz Sawyer. Buzz Sawyer was another guy that nobody liked. I think Ole Anderson liked him, but that's about it. I could tell you a story if you want to hear this one.
Sure.
To show you how well-loved Buzz Sawyer was. When Buzz Sawyer died, we're all in the dressing room, and they come in to tell people that he died, right? Ron Simmons comes in. I think he was the world champion at that time. Like, Ron, did you hear about Buzz Sawyer? Oh, what happened? He's dead. He goes, oh, shit, where's his grave? I got to take a piss. That's what Ron Simmons said. That is your Buzz Sawyer sentiment of the era.
And that's how everybody else felt.
That is, I can't say for everybody, but a room full of people, and they said, Ron, did you hear about Buzz? And he's like, oh, shit, where's his grave? I got to take a piss right after he died. So, hello.
Yeah,
don't tell Ron I told that story, though, because he'll deny it. But I was there.
No, the only way Ron will find out about it is if he listens to this podcast.
Yeah, but it's a true story, and I mean, I can't say everybody hated Buzz, but most people hated Buzz. He beat up guys just like he had no regard for the guys. And I like watching Buzz work, but I wouldn't want to be the one in the ring. Funny thing is, the guy who's coming over to watch the show Sunday, he got beat up by Buzz a few times.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm looking in the chat here, and everybody's loving your stories, especially Lisa over here. She's loving your stories.
I know Elisa. She lived in Texas. Maybe she still. I mean, I know she still does. I don't know.
Yeah, we got people loving your stories here. I actually do too. I love stories like this. It's really good thing.
And I'm one of those guys. When Vader died, I didn't say a word. I'm not somebody, and I'm not one of those guys. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead. I mean, after he died a few months, I don't care anymore. But when he died, it even, usually when someone dies in a business, I don't like it. I'm upset. Like Dick Slater died, I always put the, rest in peace, Dick. You're awesome. Blah blah blah. But Vader, I didn't even mention it. Whereas you see all these other people who never met the guy. Oh my God, I loved him. Oh my God, he was this, he was that. Yeah, well, fuck Vader.
Yeah, you don't.
That's what I say.
You don't know unless you know the person personally or have had.
But strangely enough, I love action figures, right? I love the wrestling action figures. And as much as I hate Vader the person, he makes a cool action figure, and I love playing Vader in the video game because I love his entrance where the steam comes out of his helmet and the eyes light up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite characters to be in the game.
I'm sure when he went to WWF, a lot of the boys were probably happy.
Oh, in WCW? I mean, maybe. I don't know. I can't remember when he went there. I don't think he was there in 95 when I was there, but I could be wrong. And that's another story. You hear people talk about certain wrestlers like, oh, I hate Shawn Michaels. He was this, he was that. From fans that just read stuff on the internet and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. The time I was in WWF, Shawn Michaels was awesome. He was just a happy-go-lucky guy who was fun to be around, was always cool to me personally. And you know who was the opposite? Bret Hart. People will sit there, the fans say, oh, Bret Hart this, Bret Hart that. When I was in WWF, Bret Hart was a freaking asshole.
Wow.
Shawn Michaels would come in the dressing room, dancing, and, hey, Bob, how you doing? Shake your hand, give you a hug. Bret wouldn't even say hello to you. That's the difference between what fans think they know and what they really know. Which is probably why Bret Hart's a loner now and bitter and everything and hates everything about wrestling.
Yeah, I was going to say, a few things that I've seen Bret Hart say, especially over the past couple of years, it's like...
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's sounding very bitter.
I hate guys like that. I mean, he had the business handed to him on a silver platter, and I don't give two shits that his brother died. I know, don't get me wrong. Owen was cool as shit. Owen was fun, he was funny, and I cried when he died. And I care that he died, but I don't think Bret should use that as if any of his excuses for his bitterness, because it wasn't anybody's fault but Owen's,
Yeah.
But I understand, some people can't control their bitterness. I don't know. Like Superstar Billy Graham. I'm a big fan of Superstar Billy Graham, the wrestler, but I despise Wayne Coleman, the man. He's one of the most bitter people ever. But yet I'm friends with his mother-in-law. I love her. So she's a famous old wrestler. I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks, so I'll figure that out.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff, with Superstar Billy Graham, too.
I hate that. He hates Ronda Rousey for some reason.
I was going to say,
oh my God.
I've seen him knock Ronda Rousey on multiple occasions already.
Jeez, I could cut him down so fast. I got on his case once and he blocked me because he couldn't handle the truth. But he'll sit there and use the fact that Ronda Rousey lost 2 fights. Ronda Rousey, I don't care what anybody says, she's the greatest MMA woman fighter of all time. And if it wasn't for Ronda Rousey, and people can think what they want because most people are ignorant, the reason UFC has women fighting is because of Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
She started it. If she wouldn't have been as good as she was, as famous as she become, you wouldn't be seeing women fighting in UFC. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. It's there because of her, and she's in the Hall of Fame, and she's a legend in that particular field, and she's going to become a legend in professional wrestling. If anybody doesn't think so, they're nuts, as long as she sticks with it, because she's only going to improve. But I hate Billy Graham's mindset where he calls her a loser because she lost 2 fights. But she won every fight before that. Do you know who the greatest boxer of all time is?
Who?
Muhammad Ali. Do you know how many times he lost? 5 or 6 times.
That's what
but
I
that
was
doesn't
say,
make him not
6.
the greatest boxer of all time.
5 or 6, yeah.
But that doesn't make him not the greatest boxer of all time.
That's right.
You know who the greatest daredevil of all time was?
Well, out of Daredevils, Evel Knievel.
That's right. He's the greatest daredevil of all time, but even he didn't make every jump. But it doesn't make him not the greatest daredevil.
Yeah.
So for Billy Graham to use Ronda Rousey's 2 losses, Billy Graham writes in his own book. Listen to this, people who are listening. Billy Graham writes in his own book that when he was forced to lose a title that he never actually won because it was fake, he beat Bruno Sammartino because they allowed it. And when they took the title away from him in a fake wrestling match, he had the nerve in his book to say that's what brought him into depression, and that's why he got hooked on drugs. But he rags on Ronda Rousey for losing 2 legitimate fights, regardless of how it affected her personally. And I'm sure it did because she was trained and taught to win. It affects everybody. No one knows how they're going to handle loss until they actually face it. But Billy Graham rags on Ronda Rousey for losing 2 freaking fights after setting the women's MMA world on fire, but yet in his own book admits that losing something that he never actually even won caused him to spiral into a drug-induced downfall like never before. Who's the pathetic one? Ronda, who's on top of the world now, or Billy Graham, who's a bitter old fuck wishing he was dead 10 years ago? Who?
That would be Billy Graham.
Exactly. How was that for a rant?
I liked it.
And that's the reality. And I'm a big Billy Graham fan. I got Billy Graham action figures, okay? I have a replica title of the belt he held because it's one of my favorites. Again, I can separate the person from the wrestler. I can love the wrestling legend and hate the person he is.
Yeah.
Why he's the way he is, I don't know. And he's burned his bridge with WWE and kissed their ass and got back in good graces and burned it again. He's definitely got mental problems.
He has to. He has to.
And you know what makes me mad about it the most? Because he's such an asshole. He's never going to get another Billy Graham action figure made by Mattel. We have to be stuck with the old Jakks figures, which are cool, but who doesn't want a new Billy Graham?
Yeah. Yeah.
But as long as he's an asshole, he's not going to get one.
And he'll probably never
They're going to make a Hulk Hogan action figure holding the body of a dead black man before they're going to give Billy Graham an action figure. Yeah. Take that.
I've been hearing rumors, I don't know how true they are. Speaking of the Hulkster, I heard that he's going to be at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if that's true, though.
I heard that. I hope it is. I'm a big Hogan fan. I've always been a Hogan fan ever since I was a kid watching the wrestling when he first popped in the magazines in the late 70s and throughout. I'm sitting here in my living room and I got women counting right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I got 12 Hulk Hogan figures within 5 inches from me.
Wow.
from 12 inches to 16 inches to 21 inches. That's right. Call me a mark all you want. I'm a Hulk Hogan fan, and I hope he comes back at Crown Jewel, and I don't care who boos.
I want him back. I've been on his side since since this whole thing happened, and I hope he comes back, and I hope he has one more good run. Not of course in the ring, but making appearances and.
Right. I don't expect him to come back and wrestle. I mean, he still looks good for his age. Hell, he looks better than most people. He still works out, blah, blah. I don't expect him to wrestle, but he should always be allowed to come back, come to the ring, brother this, brother that, strike a pose, Madonna style, and rock on out of the ring. Because I got news for people who don't realize that this is the truth. I said I'm sitting here with Hulk Hogan figures, right? Yeah. I got a Mickey James figure here. I got a Razor Ramon. I got a Alundra Blaze. I got several other figures, right? None of those figures would be sitting here today if it wasn't for the star Hulk Hogan became in 1983 and beyond. None of them. The WWE wouldn't be where it is today. They wouldn't have never been able to go public. Everything the WWE today was built off of the hard work in the back of what Hulk Hogan created 35 years ago. And anybody who doesn't think that is an idiot.
It's true, because there never would have even been a WrestleMania.
Right. And everything, obviously that was a gamble and it worked. But everything started with that initial Hulk Hogan beating the Iron Sheik January 23rd, 1984, Madison Square Garden. The place goes nuts. And that was when Hulkamania, obviously, it was big in the AWA, but that's where it took it to the next level. And from that point on, boom. That's why we have everything we see today.
Yeah,
everything.
Exactly.
Now, don't get me wrong. He didn't do it on his own. I mean, he had great opponents in that day, Don Morocco, John Studd, Andre the Giant, blah, 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 and all the rest helped. But he started it.
Yeah,
and people stepped up.
Everybody.
Right, and people stepped up from that point and were able to continue what he started. I mean, Steve Austin went crazy, right? He became huge. And The Rock and all that, and Cena and Triple H and Shawn and Undertaker, all those guys helped take it to the next level that the Hulk brought it to. But without the Hulk in the beginning, none of it would have made it to where it is. You never would have got back on national TV in 85. You never would have got pay-per-views. None of it.
That's right.
But that's why I hate wrestling fans, that they're so cynical. I always thought, if you're in a real sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a baseball player and you can no longer pitch a 100-mile ball, or you can't eye the ball, and you can't hit the knockouts, you can't shoot the basket, you can't throw the football. I understand the fans wanting you gone because that's a real sport and you're really trying to win. But wrestling's not real. You're there to entertain. And I understand Hulk shouldn't be in the ring because, God, look, he's had multiple back surgeries, hip replacements, knee replacements. I get that part. But he should always be welcome. He should be 90 years old and come down that freaking ramp and people going, yes, it's Hulk Hogan. But you got these cynical fans that's like, oh, man, he's washed up. He's a piece of shit. Well, guess what? Fuck you. That's what I say.
Yeah, because none of these fans would ever had all of this if it wasn't for him.
Exactly. But there's people who just don't want to give him credit. And, of course, there's some people who are just, those people that have never done anything wrong in their life. I use racist slurs all the time in my sleep, let alone in real life, because I'm an asshole. I don't do it in public places, but it doesn't make me a racist. It just makes me an asshole. There's a difference,
Yeah.
I've always thought, if you're such a pussy and you go through life where words of all things affect you, then not only were you raised wrong, but your life's never going to amount to anything. If you're offended by something as simple as words, I don't give a shit. You ever hear the saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me? Guess what? It's true.
That is true.
You want to throw stones at me? That's going to hurt. You want to call me a fat fuck? I'm just going to go, hey, what do you want from me? I don't care. But we're such a sissified nation now, where people can't say anything or do anything without a couple of people starting that fire where, oh, my God, I can't believe he said that. Next thing, oh, geez, I can't believe he said that either. Oh, what's this? What's that? Get over yourselves. Who's it affecting? Nobody.
Yeah, and everybody's very easily offended.
If you've ever listened to the best takes on Hulk Hogan in that situation are by Booker T and Tony Atlas. If you ever listen to their stuff, They have the absolute best take on what Hulk did and how they don't care and how he's just, he's a cool guy. And most people love Hulk, but you got your ignorant fans that don't. And you got your bitter old wrestlers who never amounted to anything or spent all the money they made that Hulk made them. And so they hate him, Yeah. But I'm friends with, like I said, I'm friends with Brian Blair and Fred Altman, and they're huge friends with Hulk. They love Hulk,
And then, you got guys of today like Titus O'Neil and, Mark Henry, all those guys saying how they won't forgive Hulk Hogan, or what did Mark Henry say? Something like he needs to undergo racial tolerance classes or something.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I swear to God, I would have fired those two for what they did. You have Vince McMahon, who's made the decision. It's his company. He made the decision to let Hulk back in the Hall of Fame, even though he was never really taken out of it because he was could always go back and watch his speech on the network. But they allowed him back in. They put him in the beginning credits of Raw now, a couple of shots of him. I mean, those guys had no right saying anything except yes sir, no sir. Whatever their opinions are, they should keep them to themselves because they've had a job undeservingly for years. Mark Henry never amounted to shit in wrestling. He had a 20-year contract for millions of dollars he never earned.
Yeah.
He's never had a good match in his life, I don't think, except maybe one, and I can't even remember who it was with, maybe Roman Reigns or something. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Titus O'Neil's never done nothing in wrestling except fall on his face in frickin' Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you're ever going to remember of. I don't give a shit if he's father of the year, grandfather of the year, preacher, whatever he is. He's never amounted to anything in wrestling. He's never been nothing more than I turn the channel when he comes on, or it's time to go walk the dog. And that's not just my opinion. That's the opinion of the fans when they go, oh, geez, here he comes. They don't care. You're lucky to have a job. Shut up. Vince made the decision. Most of the guys were happy Hulk's back, but you got these two guys and a few others who probably say all the things in the world behind people's backs. But again, listen to Tony Atlas's take on the Hulk Hogan. It's absolutely fantastic. And Tony Atlas is nuts, but it's a great take. And total positive. I mean, he talks about Hulk helping him when he was down and out and keeping him working when he didn't have a job, that kind of stuff.
And the New Day are the other few guys, because the New Day, that's when they wrote that big open letter, too, like how they just won't acknowledge Hogan or whatever, they won't say nothing. It's like, really?
Ridiculous. Just get over that and get over themselves. Jeez.
And then how they tried to say, what was the other big famous thing that all these guys started to say? It was something like, he wasn't being remorseful about what he said. It sounded like he regretted that he got caught or something. They started to spin that. Then that was the next thing.
Exactly. And then you have and another thing you always have some idiot who's staying in his parents' basement. He's got access to a keyboard and the internet, and he's got a website, and he's spewing his hate, and he keeps it going. So you got that guy does it, and you got some other idiot who wants to make a name for himself. So he's going to do whatever he can to keep that, Hulk part of his life alive, rather than just go, all right, Hulk's back, fine. You got to write that, but he said this and he said that. And Jesus, if we all got taped for what we said, we'd all be in jail. And if we all could go to jail for what we think, we'd have been put to death years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, I had a dream the other night that would have put me in jail for 30 years. Just don't tell the woman I raped. I'm just kidding. But the point is, people are just so sensitive now. Or not really, but they pretend to be so sensitive. And they never look at themselves before they judge other people,
No, they're always quick to judge.
Exactly.
They go right to it, and that's that.
But, I mean, the fact that they put the Hulk back in the Hall of Fame, and what I love about Vince is he's just, basically saying he ain't going to talk about it. And that's great. Same with Saudi Arabia. He said, look, we made our statement. We're doing the show. Bye. That's what he should do. No matter what negative publicity comes from the Saudi Arabia show, ignore every bit of it because it'll all blow over if you do that. If you feed it and you allow people to speak on it, well, then it's just going to fuel the fire. Just ignore it. Say, hey, we did the show. It was a great success. We'll be back next year.
And I love that you brought that up because that was actually the next question I was going to get into with you. And, one dilemma, I don't know if this is fake news going around or if this is real news, but I've heard possibly, I guess, that Daniel Bryan and John Cena might not be traveling to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I heard that. And if it's true, big deal. There's other guys that could. Look, Roman's got the cancer. He's not going to be in a main event. What'd they do? They went, oh, it's going to be Brock against Braun. Settled. So if Bryan and them don't show up, you put someone in their place. Big deal. It's not going to hurt nothing.
Yeah.
I understand people being leery and not wanting to go, and I hope it all works out for them. But, man, there's so much money on the table. And I get it. Money's not everything. But guess what? When it's millions and millions of dollars, it kind of is everything. And I'm sure Vince gave everybody the opportunity, like, look, here's what we're going to do. You want to go? You're in. This is your payday. You make your decision. And everybody who decides to go goes. Those who don't. Simple. Just like when Owen Hart died. A lot of people got on WWE's case back then. I mean, you probably don't remember that because you're so young, but when Owen died, they got all kinds of flack. I can't believe they went on with the show. Well, guess what? When that happened, they asked everybody in the dressing room, what do you guys want to do? And they all said 100%, we want to go on the show because that's what Owen would want. And they went on the show, and people hated it. I don't mean people, but the media bashed them. But who cares? Exactly. It all got blown over.
Actually,
the wrestlers had a choice, and they took it.
Actually, I do remember that. I was 11 years old, and
oh, that hurt.
I remember, I remember it clearly, when that happened, and then they had JR doing the announcements and everything, and I guess while that was going on, it's probably when they were talking to the boys in the back. Right,
and I was watching that live. It was a horrible show. Same with when they came on when Brian Pillman died. I knew Brian really well. I traveled with him, partied with him, roomed with him, worked with him a bunch of times. Great guy. And when they came on the air that night, when Brian Pillman was found dead, Jesus, man, I started crying. But that's the way it is. Show goes on, always.
Yeah, I mean, it can't stop. It can't stop.
That's the thing the fans don't understand. Great, look, I don't condone some guy being killed, but at the end of the day, it's one. Now you can say, well, it's not right. It's not just one guy. Well, technically, it is just one guy, and you don't stop the world for one guy. And it was a guy who was known to write, or he was a journalist, right?
Yep.
Say things against the Saudi government. And if you're in a world where what you're doing displeases the crazies, you kind of get what you asked for in the end if you actually get what you asked for. Put yourselves in dangerous situations. Dangerously bad things are going to happen. Trust me.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? You don't go talking about people like that, especially when you know they're going to hear you.
I mean, if you're going with your friend to a crack house and you decide not to just drop them off and drive away and go in and something bad happens, guess what? It's not the crack house's problem. Sure, they killed you, but you're the dumbass that went in there.
Yeah. Yeah, you could easily.
By the way, where can I find a crack house?
Actually, I don't know.
Like I said to you, I've never been a drug guy. I'm not like a lot of the old wrestlers. I never did drugs and wasn't an alcoholic, although I had a few drinks. Never had a drink in my life until I was 28 years old, thanks to the legendary Evel Knievel. But I never did drugs, but I'm thinking about starting at this age, like I said.
It's one of those things you want to do before you check out, huh?
Yeah, why not? What do I got to lose? At my age, nothing matters anymore.
Well, you still got some matches left in you, though. You got to stick around for that.
Well, that's just because I'm stupid. I mean, geez, I did a match October 25th. Every year we do a thing, the Great Malenko Memorial Cup, honoring the Great Malenko, and we all get together, and it's like a reunion of all the old guys that are still alive and people who love Malenko. We did it, and I was in the Battle Royal, and I blew my knee out towards the end of the Battle Royal. Couldn't even walk. And a week later, I was supposed to wrestle, but I ended up just playing a manager role on September 1st. I haven't wrestled since then. My knee's better now. Some guy asked me to wrestle in January, and I went, okay. So I'm an idiot. Well, I mean, I didn't get my knee fixed. I didn't go to a doctor. I just went, oh, geez, I can walk on it. I guess it's okay. When I know it's one thing to walk on a knee and take my dog for a walk and do whatever, but, oh, crap, you heard me say that. Anyways, it's one thing to do that than actually go in the ring. And this match I'm going to be in, believe it or not, is a 10-team cage match. Bring your own weapons, bunkhouse rules. I'm an idiot. I couldn't turn them down, though.
Well, you love it. You love it.
I mean, yeah. As soon as he said to me, I went, are you kidding? He goes, no. I said, oh, you just made my day. I'm an idiot. I'll do it. But it's still like 11 weeks away, so I'm going to try to cut down on a Mountain Dew and do it.
When was the last time you wrestled in a match?
Well, August 25th at the Malenko Cup when I blew my knee out.
Oh, okay. So a couple months back.
However long, like August, was it September, October, a couple months ago.
When did you step away from the pro circuit of wrestling, like WCW, WWF? Like, what was the last of your time over there in those companies?
Well, I quit WCW in '94, and I only worked for WWF for '95, and then I just did independent stuff from there because I always had a wife. Well, like I said earlier, my whore wife, who's not my wife anymore, but she always had a good job, so I was allowed to pretend that I was making a living wrestling. I could go play wrestler and make what I made, and everything went well because she worked. And then in '95, I just kept getting hurt, and not just hurt. There's a difference between every time you wrestle, you get hurt. There's a difference between getting hurt and being injured. So I say later on, I started getting injured more. Where I couldn't do this or that for a while, and I got tired of being in pain. And then I got tired of being on the road. And about 6 months after I quit, I got tired of being home and wishing I could go on the road. But that's a whole other story.
What was? I guess I'll put it this way in two different questions here. What was the best match you feel you ever had, and what was the worst match you feel you ever had?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I mean, my favorite matches I can say are there was a guy who lives a couple miles from me. His name is Rick Ryder, somebody who I trained in the '80s, and for years we were like the semi-main event and main event all over Florida on independent shows, and every conceivable match you could think of, cage matches, chain matches, death matches, tape fist matches, street fights, bull rope matches, everything. And we had so much fun, and we still have people who come up shows that we do once in a while, and oh man, I remember you and Rick. Boy, I remember you and Rick. Those were my funnest matches because we had, it was the blood, there was the excitement. You'd have all those matches where they're like schoolyard fights, where you're fighting outside the ring and around, and the fans are crowding around you, and they're oohing and on at every punch and every. I never mentioned that about the punch, did I? But oohing and on about that was the best. I mean, the matches I look back on just because of who I worked, though. I mean, God, Ric Flair was awesome. Like I said before, Jerry Lawler. My favorite, my opinion, the best wrestler I ever worked with, though, Dean Malenko.
Oh, Dean Malenko.
I worked with Dean Malenko tons of times because I was trained by him and his dad and his brother Joe. And, we got to work Dean Malenko on independent shows all over Florida for years, and in '89, the great Malenko called me and he says, we wanted to start doing this TV show called Suncoast Pro Wrestling, which is only about an hour from my house. And he goes, I want you to be the masked superstar, and I want you to be the top heel, and I want you to feud with my son Dean, and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, I went, what are you, nuts? I don't want to do that. I'm just kidding. I said, yes, sir, I'll be there. So a lot of people would get on my case now if they hear, oh, you're the masked superstar, that's Bill Eadie, blah, blah. Well, guess what? When your mentor, father figure, and someone you love and respect calls you on the phone and says, Bob, we're doing this TV show. I want you to be the masked superstar. Will you do it? What do you say? Yes, sir. Where, when, and how? That's what you do. So anybody who says, oh, you were, stealing Bill Eadie's gimmick. No. The great Malenko gave Bill Eadie the masked superstar gimmick, and he asked me to use it when Bill quit using it, and I said yes. But again, I had so many fun matches with Dean, man. He was the best. He had everything, like perfect timing, smooth as silk, light as a feather. He could drop kick you off the top rope right in your face and you not feel a thing. Just take your bump and it looked like you took your head off. That's how good he was. Was.
Yeah, Dean, he had some great matches that I just love to sit down and watch as well.
Oh, with Eddie Guerrero and Mysterio Jr.
Yeah.
Benoit, whoever. What was that guy's name?
And Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho's my favorite of all time.
That's good. My favorite of all time is Terry Funk. He's the one who got me hooked in 1975 with Terry Funk going crazy. Gordon Solie calling the action, and that's what hooked me.
Oh, Terry Funk, he's one of the biggest legends in the business.
Exactly. One of the nicest guys. He's one of the best bad guys in the history of the business. When I was a kid, I swear, like, every time you'd see Terry Funk, because he was always in the main events, because, he's freaking Terry Funk. But he was always the heel, most of the time. But almost every time you'd see Terry Funk, he had people so pissed off that he had to beat a couple fans up for real. And he was a legitimate badass, so he never had a problem with that. But he's one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, but one of the best bad guys to ever walk the planet. That is where the art comes in, and that's where the real talent is.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime I was at a show with Terry Funk, I would sit there all the time as much as I could and just hang around with him. Same with his brother Dory, other awesome guy.
Oh, yeah, the Funks.
But unfortunately, they're getting older.
But they're still out there doing it.
Yeah, Dory lives, we're going to actually go see him soon, me and my lady friend. But he only lives about 2.5 hours from me. But he has his school there, and he does a little TV taping every once in a while called Bang TV that he's been doing for, years. And he's the one that trained Kurt Angle and a bunch of the, I think Edge maybe. Dory's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I love the Funks. Looking back on their old classic stuff, I do. It's great.
And yes, I have 4 Terry Funk action figures within reach, right here. True story.
Now, here's a fun one. I would obviously know the answer, your answer to this question, if you would have worked with this guy, but you didn't. But I gotta ask, who was the worst guy to work with? I mean, I know Vader would have been the worst guy if you would have worked with him, but
probably, yeah.
Since you didn't work him, who was the worst guy you worked?
One of the worst, and mainly because he was an asshole and he didn't respect wrestling. He was only there for the money, and he wasn't really even a wrestler. He was a big steroided up bodybuilder. Not a bodybuilder, but a power lifter. His name was Bill Kazmaier. He was only in WCW for a short time. The match I had with him actually showed up on YouTube recently. A couple of great punches I threw, though. I got to admit it. But he was horrible because everything he did was just stiff and robotic, and he didn't appreciate it. He badmouths wrestling to this day, and it's just ridiculous. I hate guys like him. He was just there for the money, and I don't even know why they brought him in because he was horrible. He did this stupid powerlifting crap where he lifted a dumbbell with his pinky or whatever, and he looked a big fat bug-eyed mongoloid looking freak, and he was just a jerk. That'd be one of the worst matches. Even though I watched it, like I said, I got 2 good punches in, but I don't know. The worst simply from the fact that he didn't have any respect for you or the business. And people like that are useless. They're like, people like that are like some of the fans.
Yeah.
There are fans who, a lot of the fans that hate wrestling have no respect for it. Other people in it, they have no respect for the effort and the work they put into it. You're going to have people ragging on the pay-per-view Sunday, even though all the girls are going to bust their ass. And there's going to be people that are just sitting back, oh, that match was shit. That match was crap. You know what? If you go into a show thinking it's going to be crap, it's going to be crap. How about just going into the show like this? Hey, I love wrestling. I got 3 hours in front of me to do nothing but love wrestling. And that's what you do. And it's going to be a good show. And that's the way you should look at every wrestling show.
And you know what? I would think, especially going into this show, Ronda's definitely going to bust her ass, I think, harder than all the women there.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, she's done nothing wrong since she's been there, and obviously everything she does, she's doing what she's told and what she's taught. Man, every match she pulls out something new. She does things that your average wrestling fan don't even understand. Like her first match in the public eye was in front of almost 100,000 people in the biggest show of the year. No one in history has ever had that kind of pressure except some kind of a dipshit like maybe Lawrence Taylor or, some celebrity clown in the match. But Ronda was, with high expectations. You can have high expectations for some football player that wants to make a couple $100,000. And she went out there and she freaking rocked WrestleMania. It was incredible. I mean, that stuff what she did with Triple H, where she, got the fight with the corner and hit him and he she went to kick him, and he grabbed her, and then she rolled up and had him on her shoulder. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, that was something else.
And that's what I was talking about. Like, your average wrestling fan wouldn't realize the little things she does that some of the people that have been in the business for years do. First of all, she wipes her feet before she gets in the ring. That's as old school tradition and respect that you can have, and she does it every single time. Even in the video game, she wipes her feet before she gets in the ring. But the little things she does that wrestling fans wouldn't understand as being special. The things she does, just the little things with her eye movements and the way she reacts to the crowd and the way her facial expressions, and just like when she had Stephanie McMahon, where she would just jaw jacking to her and she'd just twist her head and look at the crowd. Those little things mean so much more than anybody who doesn't understand the ring psychology. It means so much. Jerry Lawler was good at that. If you ever want to learn ring psychology, Jerry Lawler could get a crowd wanting to kill him by simply looking at him the wrong way. Randy Orton is good at that too, where you can just do the littlest things and get the biggest reactions. That's working the crowd, and Ronda does it every time.
Yeah, she does phenomenal work.
Right, and you got some of these fans that they'll just overanalyzing. She sold too much. She did this too much. No, she didn't. If she went out there and killed everybody, then they'll be like, geez, she's killing everybody. So she goes out there and she lets them get some moves in and she sells them. Oh, she's selling too much. No, she's not. She's working and she's doing damn good. And keep in mind, ignorant, overbearing wrestling fans, she's only been working a few months and she's doing better than some ever have. Give her a shot, give her a chance, and if I get a chance, I'll give her a kiss.
Yeah, there you go.
I love Ronda. I'd like to taste her sweat just to see how hard she worked. I really would. I would.
Well,
She's got a big, ugly husband, so what the heck, right?
Yeah, you know what? It figures her first time in the ring, she had to be going against my favorite girl, Stephanie. It figures.
Yeah, and Stephanie did great too. That's one of my favorite matches of all time. I mean, it was simple. It was like you had the old school pacing. It was simple, but it told an incredible story. It had its ups, its downs, its twists, its turns. And the crowd was on their feet, beginning to end, chanting, "This is awesome, this is that." That's when you got them hooked. And Ronda, I mean, she's getting a little more boos than she did, but she still gets a great reaction. And the boos are coming from your ignorant fans, Like I follow Ronda on Instagram, and she's smart because she never responds to people because there's so much haters on there.
Yeah.
But the reality is she has 11.5 million followers on Instagram. She posts a picture several times a day usually of different things, whether it's wrestling or her on the farm, whatever. She always gets several 100,000 likes and anywhere between 500 to 2,000 comments. And about 25% of them are your asshole UFC fans like, "Oh, why don't you come back to a real sport? Oh, now you're the champion because it's fake," blah, blah, all this bullshit hate. And then you got your ignorant wrestling fans who are just like, "Oh, geez, you've been there 6 months, you're the champion, don't deserve it," blah, blah, all that bullshit. But most of the people are positive, but that gives you your idea, right? You got 11.5 million followers, 2,000 comments, 25% are haters. There's your base. Most of the people love her. That's my point.
Yeah.
But she doesn't. If I was her, I'd hire somebody to just delete and block every freaking hater. But she's smart. She doesn't respond to them, which is sad because if they weren't haters, she'd probably be more responsive. Like, hey, because I always put on, "Hey, you're doing awesome, proud of you, keep it up," And those boots she had on, those the shoes she wore in her last match, I think it was a pay-per-view, red boots, shoes, whatever they were.
Oh, the Super Showdown show?
Huh?
The Super Showdown pay-per-view?
I don't know. Was she on that?
Yeah, she was in that. It was her and the Bella Twins against.
Yeah.
The Riot Squad.
She had those. I like those red shoes she had on, and I messaged Charles Robinson, the referee, because I'm friends with him on Facebook, and asked him if he knew what they were, and he said that everybody's already left, and Ronda's on Raw, and he's on SmackDown, so he wouldn't see her for a while. So I messaged my old friend Dustin Rhodes, right? And I said, "Dustin, do you know where Ronda got her shoes?" And he goes, "I don't know. Let me check." 10 minutes later, he messaged me back. "Oh, I just texted her. They're this and this. This is where you get them." So there you go.
Did you go and
I found out where she got them, and I didn't buy them because they're like $300 for a stupid pair of shoes. I'm like, hey, they're cool, but not that cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, again, I don't care what anybody says. I love Ronda. I've loved her since the beginning. And I think she's going to be a phenomenal heel when she goes down that road. Because she's already getting better on the mic. She's already more comfortable. She can come back with the smart-ass responses. And I think she'll be a badass heel when she finally turns.
I just hope they don't feed her, momentum in her undefeated streak to Charlotte Flair.
Oh, I do. I want her to wrestle Charlotte.
I want her to wrestle her, but I want Ronda to conquer. I want her to be the conqueror.
Definitely. Yeah, you definitely want Ronda to win, but who knows what's going to... I heard there's some bad things about Charlotte that might be coming out in public. Hopefully it's not true, but...
That's what I heard, too. I don't know if there's truth to that or not, but I heard, I guess it's Charlotte's ex-husband that's, he's threatening to bring something out.
Yeah, some kind of racist rant when they were stopped by the cops or something. What a piece of shit if he actually does that, though. What they'll probably do is just settle out of court for a few $100 and shut him up. But I would love to see Ronda Rousey against Charlotte as a main event at WrestleMania. I don't care what anybody says. I think Charlotte's fantastic. But I'd definitely rather see Ronda win. But again, I'm not one of those fans that gets pissed about stuff. I don't care about nothing.
Yeah.
I watch the shows. When it's good, it's good. If something's bad, it's bad. Whatever. Who cares? I don't get upset. I don't care who wins or loses. I like a match to be good, and if a match is good, great. But I don't care who wins or loses. I'm just saying I would love to see Ronda win, but if she loses, I'll be like, I don't care. But if the match is great, that's it. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Give me a great match. I don't care who wins or loses because I don't sit there and analyze it. I don't sit there and go, oh, geez, they should have did that in the corner. Oh, look, you can see him talking. Oh, look, she looked that way when she should have looked this way. No, I just watched the show again. I watch wrestling just like I was a fan. I actually like to hear people calling matches in the ring because that's a lost art in itself. A lot of they don't do that as much anymore. So if you hear people calling matches in the ring, it's like, oh man, I like that because that's like the way we did it when I was wrestling. You didn't go over the whole match in the back like they do now.
That's true.
And Nikki Bella does that a lot. You can hear she's a little loud, but you can hear her calling spots and stuff. And I'm not sure what anybody says. Nikki Bella she's more than competent to have a great match with Ronda.
I think Nikki Bella's come a long way compared to where she started and to where she is now.
She's been in the business, 11, 12 years? I mean, everybody gets better.
Yeah. And
considering her neck problems, that in itself is the worst injury you can get.
It's terrible. Neck injuries, the knee injuries, too, that some of the guys get. I know Edge had the Achilles and the neck. He had both.
But we've been on this show for this long, and not one person wants to ask Bob Cook, known as the Cooker, by the way, friends with the legends, friends with the legendary Evel Knievel, and no one wants to ask the question. Shame on you, shame on the fans.
Yeah, what's going on? They're all sitting here listening.
I'm rambling. They're going, who is this guy? I don't know what he's even saying. I can't understand him. What can I say?
I got viewers on here listening, but yeah, I'll throw it out there too, just like you did. Who wants to ask Bob Cook a question?
We never did get to the punch part, did we?
No, we never did get there. So if you'd like to go on that for now, and then if people put questions in, I'll let you know.
It's a simple story. I was wrestling for WCW. I was wrestling Van Hammer, who was a good friend of mine and nowhere near as bad as people thought, so F you. But the point is, I was wrestling Van Hammer on WCW Saturday night. I got done wrestling. I was upstairs getting a Coke. Pee Wee Anderson came up and he said, Cook, Watts wants to see you, because Bill Watts was booking, and I was like, oh, shit, what do I do, Because, again, I liked Bill Watts. He would sit in the dressing room and tell me stories and stuff, and what's not to love, right?
Yeah.
But I come down the hallway, and all the guys are in the hallway. And Watts is there, and he goes, guys, Bob Cook. He goes, next to me, this guy, Bob Cook, has the best punch I've ever seen. He put himself over first, right next to me. But he goes, he has the best punch I've ever seen. He said, from now on, I want everybody to sell the shit out of it. I want the announcers to put it over. And that's how it all started. Because if you go back and watch after a certain period of time, when I'd throw a punch or something, Tony Schiavone would go, Bob Cook with that right hand. And the great Jesse Ventura would say, oh, Bob Cook's got the best punch I've ever seen. That stuff is awesome, right?
Oh, yeah.
But again, I've never said that, and I've never thought that, but people say that, and people think that, whether they really do or not, I don't know. but I've always appreciated it. So have we established two things? No, have we established three things tonight?
That you got
three of the most important things, huh?
One of them is that you got the best punch.
Well, no. The three most important things is I'm not bitter, I have zero ego, and I love professional wrestling, and I will always love professional wrestling. And to give the wrestling fans a perfect view of why I hate the word jobber, why I hate the word enhancement talent, it's because everybody in those days, I can't speak for today, and especially independent shows. I'm talking about guys, we all went to wrestling school. We all busted our ass week after week in wrestling school. We all went to the gym. We all traveled the roads. We stayed in the same hotel rooms. We partied in the same bars. We wrestled in the same rings. We didn't make the same money, and sometimes we screwed the same rats. But we were all part of the business and all part of the wrestling family. So to call somebody just because they lost on TV a jobber or an enhancement talent is so wrong, because we all live the same life, just on different levels.
That's true. That is true.
I mean, my God, if you're wrestling, let's say you're a rock and roll star and you're opening for the Rolling Stones, you always have that in your portfolio, right? You can always tell people, yeah, I used to play in a band. Open for the Rolling Stones in front of 70,000 at Yankee Stadium. You know how many people who play in bands and bars for next to nothing will never be able to say that? Well, I can say I wrestled Scott Hall in the first match at the Great American Bash in Miami in front of 20,000 people at the Orange Bowl. Hey, I was in the first match. Lasted 30 minutes, or lasted a minute and 30 seconds. I got paid $1,500. The main event was a double cage War Games match, but I was there, man. That's my outlook. It's called positive.
And
positivity.
And that's the only way you could look at it, to be honest.
I mean, how can how can anybody look down on that? I mean, as the person there, I don't care what the fans think again, but I can always say that, right? I mean, you got guys that would love to say they even met Scott Hall. I can say I wrestled him in front of 20,000 people for $1,500 for a minute and a half. And no, I mean, to me, that's like, wow, cool. I wish I had it on tape.
You know what? Lisa said something here that I might have to agree with her on.
Uh-oh.
She said, with all the stories...
I wear boxers.
Hey, I do too. She said, with all the stories Bob told, she said, what is there to really ask? He's a cool guy.
Oh, well, that's true. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I appreciate that. I do say, I know I say I hate the fans a lot and stuff, but I do like the fans that obviously, I don't care if they like me, but I like the fans that actually respect the business, appreciate the effort and the hard work and the time that people put into it, because the fans really don't understand it. They see the guy come out, do his match 10, 15 minutes and go back. They don't see the preparation backstage, the stretching, the work, all that crap that goes into it before and after the show. They don't see that. So the people who just appreciate the fact that they do it are the people I really like, because they're the real fans, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm one of the people that definitely appreciates what these guys do, and I tell everybody on, my show, thank you for what they've done and thank you for their contributions, because, like for me, through all the things I've been through in my life, all the things that I went through, I could be having the worst day imaginable, or like when I was, a kid having surgery, long hospital stays, professional wrestling was that one thing that got me through and made me feel good.
Right. I mean, it's the same with me. I mean, that was my childhood. I had two things in my childhood that I loved more than anything, and that was Evel Knievel, someone that I still love, and someone who I became friends with the last 10 years of his life. And I always bring that up because I'm proud of it. Because very few people can say they got to meet their childhood heroes, let alone be friends with them, let alone have them in my house where I'm sitting right now. I have a 12 by 14 foot mural painted on my living room wall that he came and signed to me in 2001. That kind of stuff I'm proud of, and I'll brag about it all day. But those are the two things that I love more than anything in my life, was wrestling in 75, but Evil since 68 and still today. But those are the two things that got me through my childhood, you know?
Yeah.
And I had a great childhood. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to come on here with my childhood sucked. No, I had the best childhood ever. Get this. Are you listening? Tell the people to get real close to the phone. I had parents that loved me. They didn't get a divorce. Neither one of them drank or did drugs. My father was a hard-working businessman, owned 3 auto parts stores. My mom was a mom. They never fought. I was spoiled like a bastard, but I never grew up not appreciating it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So my point is, I had a great childhood, but I was always – my dad worked a lot, so I never saw him a lot. He was one of those guys that left the house when it was dark, came home when it was dark, spoiled the crap out of us. We had mini bikes, motorcycles, go-karts. And I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you my childhood. And, you know, they say don't – what is it? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Yeah, I never got spanked. I was never a brat. I never went to a store and whined because I didn't get something. You know, my whole point is that I had a great childhood, but my dad wasn't always around because he worked so much. But Evel Knievel and wrestling was my savior, basically.
And for me, it was professional wrestling and the music of Stevie Nicks.
Oh, well, she was hot in her day. If she dropped about 50 pounds, she might look okay for 70.
Yeah, for 70, she's still looking good out there.
I saw something about her recently where, like, she did a song somewhere and she just blew the roof off the place. You know, and you're just like, gee, that's the real talent. People like that.
Actually, she was in Cleveland tonight with Fleetwood Mac doing a show. It killed me that I couldn't go there tonight.
Damn. Well, I'll tell you who I got to see this year in concert. I'm not a concert guy. I've never been a fan of live music. I've gone to a few country music concerts because my wife liked country music, so I got to see Travis Trent and Hank Williams Jr. and Charlie Daniels, and I liked all of them because they're like legends. But this year, my friend and I went to see Pink, and I love Pink. And I'm not a huge fan of like today's music, but I love Pink. And we went to see her in concert, sold out, 20,000 people. The absolute most spectacular show outside of wrestling that I've ever seen live in my life. I mean, just incredible. I've got like several of her concerts on Blu-ray, which I watch them every couple of weeks. But I just think she's fantastic. And I'm just letting you know that a 55-year-old beaten down wrestler loves Pink.
Hey, you could love whatever you want, man.
I would go see her again in a heartbeat. And she's going to be in Tampa, I think, in March, so you never know.
Oh.
But, yeah, I mean, it was awesome. The stadium we went to was like Orlando where they played basketball for the Orlando Magic. Horrible arena, horrible seating conditions, but 20,000 people and Pink. I mean, come on. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. You know, at some of those concerts, it's a fun time. But, yeah, I mean, I know I've been rambling, but I just had to let a few things out there. You know, I always like to tell people I was friends with my hero, Evel Knievel. Hey,
because he was a wonderful person. And,
hey, it's totally fine. You know what? Like I said in the beginning, this show's basically a platform for you to just come on and say whatever you're feeling.
Well, that's good. You know, I got to do a lot of really cool things because of Evel. When the A&E shot his biography in 1998, he had him come to my house. And if you watch that biography, not only is my name in the credits, but all the pictures and the toys, the pinball machine, and all the things that were shown in the documentary were shot at my house. I no longer have those things. Remember I said I had a whore wife? Well, but the good news is all of that stuff that I used to have a really cool like replica motorcycle that he jumped on, you know, the exact replica Harley Davidson. We used to have a life-size replica of the rocket he used to jump the canyon, all kinds of cool stuff. Pinball machines, slot machines. It's all in the Evel Knievel Museum. If you're an Evel Knievel fan, or even if you're not, you'll become one. Go to Topeka, Kansas, to the Evel Knievel Museum. It's the greatest place in the world. I mean, it's unbelievable. I say, if you're an Evel fan, you'll beg to stay, and if you're not an Evel fan, you'll become one and never want to leave.
How do you feel about his son, Robbie? Are you a huge fan of Robbie, too?
I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan. I mean, obviously I followed him because when Evel retired, you know, I met Evel in 97, so I was friends with him for the last 10 years of his life. But I was fans of him since I was 5 years old. But Evil retired in 1981, and then Robbie took over. So I obviously followed Robbie because he did a lot of awesome stuff. I mean, he jumped the fountains before anybody else did in '89, and I got to see Robbie jump live, which I never did with Evil, here right down the road from us about an hour. He jumped over 30 cars in the rain in 1990, and it was phenomenal. Sold out the place. But I got to meet Robbie last year at the grand opening of the museum.
Oh.
Because I'm friends with the people who run the museum, especially the main guy, because he bought my stuff, right? And it's so cool to be there. I was there for the grand opening and the big red carpet premiere of the museum, and Robbie was there. And we got to hang out with him, afterwards with a bunch of the other crew that was there from Evil's days. And it was just awesome. Robbie was freaking hilarious. Great guy. There's pictures of me and my friend Darlene, who went with me, on my Facebook page with Robbie from that day, or it was like a 2 or 3 day event, but it was phenomenal.
Oh, that sounds nice.
No, it was incredible. And we, obviously we went to the museum like the grand opening day, and then we went back the next day. And I mean, you got to spend hours in there to totally absorb what's there, because he's got all his motorcycles, this giant, awesome tour truck that he had in the 70s. It's this giant semi that was totally restored from almost nothing to its immaculate originality, even beyond what it was when it was new in the 70s. And to be able to go in that truck, because in 2000, last time I was in that truck, it used to be stored here in Clearwater. I know I'm rambling again, it's getting late, but it used to be stored in Clearwater, and like I said, I was friends with Evil. So the last time I was in that truck was with Evil, and we're going through stuff. And to be able to go there, because Evil always wanted a museum all his life, and towards the end of his life, his main goal was to make a museum of himself, because he loved his legend, right? He loved being Evel Knievel. So he wanted to be remembered. And to go in that truck and see it exactly the way it was in the 1970s, I mean, perfect. And to sit in the chair that he sat in, man, I'm going to start crying.
That's got to be one of the most incredible experiences.
It was. And I mean, I took tons of pictures. I mean, they're on my Facebook page if anybody who gives a crap. But it was just, it was incredible to be part of it. But again, Robbie was there, and it was just a freaking awesome time. And I they were doing like recognition of people, and they recognized me in the crowd. And like, Mom, some of it, put over the fact my stuff was there, and I used to be a wrestler. And it was just really cool. And I got to meet fans of Evil, because I was like the guy who, I know it sounds silly, but in the late 90s, when the internet was just kind of becoming something, I was the only guy on the internet that had an Evel Knievel webpage besides Evil himself.
Oh.
That's how I met Evil, was through his webpage. I called the number and said, hey, does Evil ever meet his fans? And they're like, yeah, Evil loves to meet his fans. And I went to meet him, and we became friends, because he only lived like an hour and a half from me.
Wow.
But I was, other than Evil's own webpage, I was the guy that like had a webpage, because I learned HTML and all that coding for internet way back then when it was kind of new.
Yeah.
So I had a webpage, and Evil actually used my webpage as his official webpage more often than not, because I would constantly do updates, and we had an active message board and different things. And so I had a great group of people that were part of my webpage, and a lot of those people from all the way across the world, from the UK, and different people that came in for the museum grand opening. I got to meet these people for the first time, and it was just like, because we all had that connection. Evil was our childhood. So we all got to meet for the first time in person. It was just like a freaking family reunion of people you don't even know, but because they love Evil. And they gave me the credit. You're the guy that kept it going. You're the godfather of the Knievel, collecting. And I inspired so many people to collect stuff, because I would always post pictures of what I had, what I was getting. And I'm getting exhausted. I'm going to cry if I keep talking.
Hey.
I get emotional when I talk about Evil, so.
It's all right. I understand. That's. Like,
I know you wanted to talk about wrestling, but again, I like to bring that up because I'm just proud of this. One of the more, I'm proud of being friends with my childhood hero that everybody knew as much as anything I've ever done in my life.
Hey, believe me, if the same thing happened to me, I would be the same way. So I totally understand where you're coming from. And
that relationship was truly just, what do you call that? What do they call that? I don't even know how it just develops. How this not generic.
Well, like spontaneous.
Yeah, I guess that's the word, something, one of those words. But it just kind of happened. You know, I mean, I got to meet him for the first time at this golf course. And we went to this bar and sat there with a friend and him and talked to him for like 3 hours. He bought us drinks, he signed pictures. And at the time, I had a job working for an airport limo service. And we started talking about the canyon jump. And you probably don't know this, but Vince McMahon Jr. helped promote the canyon jump back in 1974. Oh. Because, you know, the canyon jump was one of the big events, though, one of the biggest events ever. But in the 1970s, it was one of the biggest publicity run events ever. You know, closed circuit television all over the country in different arenas. But in the Northeast, Vince McMahon Jr. promoted all the shows, all the closed circuit locations, Madison Square Garden, Nassau Coliseum, strangely enough, where the pay-per-view was Sunday, and all those, you know, East Coast arenas. But the reason that Vince promoted him is because Vince McMahon Sr. didn't want Vince involved in wrestling. So he sent him to go promote the evil thing, hoping to get him away from wrestling.
Oh, okay.
I have a book where Vince McMahon, and this always makes me happy because Vince McMahon is in the book and he's quoted as saying that Evel Knievel was the most fascinating person I've ever met in my life. I mean, that's what do you think of all the people that Vince McMahon met? I mean, that's a crazy compliment, right?
Oh, incredibly, because Vince McMahon has met, oh my God, thousands and thousands of people.
Right. And whether he meant it or not, I don't know, but it's in the book and blah, blah, blah. But as I was talking to Evil, you know, we started talking about the canyon jump, and you know, I mentioned that I was a wrestler, and that's when when Evil said, you know, Vince McMahon promoted it. Oh, yeah. And, you know, the canyon jump was the big rocket jump. And, of course, me being a fan, I was like, man, where do you keep the rocket, you know? And he's like, oh, I keep it right over here in Clearwater, where he was, right? Oh, I should keep it at a friend's warehouse here in Clearwater. I go, boy, I'd like to see that sometime, right? So that's what really kept it going, because he's like, well, next time you're up this way, give me a call, we'll go by and see it. And I was like, holy shit, right? So he gave me his card, and he goes, here's my mobile number. He always called it his mobile. And literally 2 days later, you know, I'm calling him, Mr. Knievel. He'd always say, Bob, call me Evil, because he liked to be called Evil. I mean, guess what? His real name is Bob, too. But anyways, I'm giving you more lessons than you need. But that was it, right? Because I had that airport limo job, so I was going that way. So I was like, yeah, I'm coming up that way. Well, come on, and we'll take you by and see it. And I brought my wife and my kid, and you can see there's pictures of it on my Facebook page. Let my kid sit in a rocket. And a fantastic day, and it just went from there.
Yeah, and then it just grew into friendship.
Right. I mean, he would call me. I could call him anytime I wanted. I never took advantage of it, but I would call him every couple of weeks, sometimes every week, just to talk to him because he was my hero. And he would always be willing to talk to me. He was like Malenko too, as our friendship grew, where I could ask him advice and ask him things, and he had an answer because he was a freaking guy that lived 1,000 lives. I mean, he was one of the biggest celebrities of all in the 1970s, and he'd been through all the pitfalls of, you know, blowing his money and screwing up and doing the wrong things, so he had the answers too. But he always had time for me. And I always thought, and again, I know I'm rambling, but I always thought the main reason that our friendship grew was because I never asked him for anything. And anytime he would be like locally doing autograph signings, because he would do that later in his life at Harley Davidson dealership, he always called me, hey Bob, I'm going to be here, you know, come on, hang out. So I'd go up there and hang out with him, and I saw fans come up to him. Obviously, they were there to get autographs, but there were people who would take advantage. You know, they always want more autographs. They want this, they want that. And I never wanted anything from them. And I always thought maybe that's one of the things that connected, you know?
I would think so. I would think that is definitely one of the things or reasons.
Now, don't get me wrong. I've asked them to sign things for me in certain situations, but I never took advantage of it like some people do. And I certainly never asked them for anything, you know, crazy. And I don't know, it's one of my greatest 10 years of my life being friends with Evil. Where, I mean, there was times where he would call me at 4 a.m. because he was a guy who stayed up late, right? And he knew I stayed up late. He just called me, Bob, it's Evil. What are you doing? You know, and I'm sitting here at 4 a.m. I'm just watching TV. Yeah, me too. What are you watching? And we just it's just normal, stupid bullshit that we would talk about, and I loved it. You know, my wife would always, you know, was that Evil? You know, yeah, because who else would call at 4 a.m?
That had to be like a dream come true.
It was, and I could think back, like the first few times I call him, I'd always say, hey, "I'm not bothering you." I'm going to go, Bob. you couldn't bother me if you wanted to. He goes, when I go to sleep, I shut my phone off. If you call, I answer, I'm up. You know, and he didn't, and I would never call him as late as he called me, but it never bothered me. I loved it, you know.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to find he left a message on a recorder for me years ago. I thought I had it on a computer saved. I wish I could find it. Just something simple where he's like, Bob, it's Evil. I'm back in town. I want to get together. I'm just calling to talk to you. Call me back. Merry Christmas. It was like around Christmas time. I want to give you and your wife a Merry Christmas, and how's your son doing? Call me back. And that kind of shit would be people, you know, other Evil fans would go, oh, man, that's cool, you know. I just can't find it, though.
It's one of those things you gotta find.
I've been trying, I just can't. And he even left messages on my recorder for me, like when he would like do my recording for me, like, yes, you've reached the cook residence. This is Evel Knievel. What the fuck do you want? You know, it's just crazy stuff.
That's great.
But I know, I mean, I could go on for hours about the cool things I got to do with him and because of him. I mean, geez, in 99, a friend and I got to take the actual rocket he used for the canyon jump, the bike he used for the shark jump, and an awesome life-size statue which sits in the doorway as soon as you walk in the museum. We got to take it all out to the canyon for Evil, all the way to Twin Falls, Idaho, in the back of a freaking U-Haul for the 25th anniversary of the jump. They set it up at the mall and all that. We got to go out by the jump site. And he paid us for it, $5,000, plus the rental.
Wow.
I mean, there's just so many great things I can go. He came out with a book in 1999 called Evil Ways. Guess whose picture's in it? Mine and my son's in front of my collection.
That is awesome.
And when I went out to the museum opening, they were giving those books away, and Robbie Knievel signed my book. But it's so cool. You look in the back of the book, it says special thanks to, and it's got all these people listed, and my name is like underneath Muhammad Ali's. Like special thanks to Muhammad Ali, because Evil and Muhammad Ali were really good friends. And my name's in the list of special thanks right close to Muhammad Ali. I'm a huge Ali fan. I got an Ali doll that's 18 inches high that talks a foot from my finger where I'm pointing right now.
You're definitely an elite company.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just, I love talking about it. I mean, if I go too far into some of the things that happened, I start crying, but there's just certain little things you got to do that your average person couldn't, you know, when it came to your hero. I mean, if you want to hear one other story, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, sure.
Because I collected Evil stuff, people used to send me letters, because before the internet, I followed this book called The Toy Shop, and people would put in classified ads for toys and lots of Evil stuff. That's where I found my first pinball machine, different things. And people would send me pictures, because you didn't have the internet then. They'd send you pictures, and you'd call them and see if you wanted the stuff. And some guy sent me a picture, and he said, I got this helmet that belonged to Evel Knievel. You interested? He sent me pictures. It looked okay, right? He wanted $500 for it. Okay, I'll buy it. I buy it, right? Mm-hmm. So I call Evil. I go, Evil, I got this helmet this guy says was yours. I'm not sure if it is or not. I go, bring it up, and I'll be able to tell if it is, right? So I go to his house. He looks at it. He goes, no, it's not mine. But he puts it on. He takes it off. He says, but now you can tell people it's the helmet Evel Knievel wore. And he signed it to me, and I still got it in my case right in front of me.
Wow.
I mean, that's one of my favorite stories, because it's like, he put it on and took it off. A helmet that, it's like it's an old helmet. But now you can tell people it's a helmet that Evel Knievel wore. And I was just like, I love this guy. Absolutely love this guy.
Yeah, so you know what? It didn't have any attachment to him at first, but he made sure it happened.
And then there was a Super Bowl one year, because Evil was a huge gambler. Mm-hmm. And this guy named Adam Vinatieri played for, I don't know, it was in New England or something. I'm not a football fan.
Oh, yeah,
he was like
the New England Patriots. Yep.
Right. He was the kicker one year, right? And I guess his kick won I don't remember back then, but I think his kick won the field goal.
It won the Super Bowl. Yep.
And Adam Vinatieri was a cousin of Evel Knievel's. I didn't know that, but the announcers on the show said it. They go, Adam Vinatieri, did you know he's a cousin of Evel Knievel? And I was like, oh, shit, I didn't know that. So I called Evel instantly. I said, Evel, is that guy really your cousin? He goes, damn right he is, and that son of a bitch just won me a fortune. Yeah. And then there's this another silly story, but Evil jumped the fountains in '68, didn't make it. It's one of the most spectacular crashes ever caught on film. And then some other guy tried it in 80, and then Robbie made it in 89, right?
Yep.
In the couple of years before Evil died, I think it was 2005, this guy named Mike Metzger, who was one of those motocross guys, that does the backflips and all that silly stuff. He was going to jump the fountains in Caesar's Palace and do a backflip over them, right?
Yeah.
And, he did it. And they promoted the show around Evil, obviously, because that's where the legend started. And they used Evil's name to get it over. And Evil was supposed to be there, but he was in really poor health the last couple of years of his life. And he didn't travel as much, especially towards the end. But he still did his part from his house. They filmed his part from his house. His part was like the Mission Impossible, right? Mike, I got your mission. You're going to do a backflip over the fountains at Caesar's Palace, right? and they're doing all that, and Mike Metzger throws his phone, it blows up. But he was at home. But his part was pre-taped anyway. But the jump was live. Anyways, Mike Metzger goes out. They put Evil over really strong, which they should, obviously. He goes out, he does the jump, and he's on TV, the guy Mike Metzger. And he's talking, and he's acting like an asshole, right? He's sticking his tongue out and acting like an idiot. And I'm just like, Jesus, this guy's an idiot. But the announcers are going, oh, I bet you Evil Knievel's sitting home right now with a huge grin on his face. That was for you, Evil. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of don't think so. So I called Evil instantly. I said, Evil, are you sitting there with a grin on your face? He goes, that fucking asshole. He's a disrespectful prick, sticking his tongue out in front of everybody. What the fuck's wrong with these kids today? Like, yeah, I kind of had a feeling you'd say that. So, here this Mike Metzger guy thinks he's over with the king, and the announcers are like, oh, he's smiling. In the real life, he was like, thinking the same thing I am, with a fucking asshole.
Yeah. That is funny.
Yeah, those just little things like that were just awesome, and being able to call your hero every year at October 17th and just go, Evil, happy birthday, because that was his birthday. I'm an idiot. I know everything about him. And if you watch my Facebook page, anything Evil important, I always mention it every year.
Hey, nobody, I bet you nobody listening to this show has ever heard stories like this.
I don't know. And I hope no one thinks it's bragging. It's not, because I don't see it as bragging. I absolutely, there's nobody in my life, outside of your own parents and whatever, but between the great Malenko and Evil Knievel that I've ever loved more. And it's so great. They say never meet your heroes. And I've been one of those guys that's been able to meet most of mine. The only one I never got to actually meet was Muhammad Ali. I got to be in his presence when I worked for an airport limo service. And he was on an airplane once, but he was like in his wheelchair and stuff. And he was literally like right next to me. And he was just waking up, and I wanted so bad. His wife was there. This is like in 2010 or something. And I wanted so bad to shake his hand and thank him for being, this white boy's hero back in the era when, racism was at its strongest. But I didn't want to bother him because people knew who he was, and, and he wasn't very well. But anyways, I got to meet my heroes, and they've all turned out cool. How often is that? How awesome is that?
That is great.
If Evil would have been a dick the first day I met him, I don't know, I probably would have been crushed for life,
Yeah, oh yeah.
But he was the total opposite. And I've seen Evil, and I know all the stories, and I know people who hate Evil, and I saw it firsthand, him treating people less than perfect. But he also would do it and then wink at me. So I didn't care. I got a kick out of it. Like he'd be himself, and people would, if people didn't do exactly what they should, people are ignorant, right? And Evil never had time for ignorance, basically. He would snap at people, but every time I was in his presence and he would snap at people, he'd wink at me. And I thought that was awesome. And I know I'm rambling again, but there's just certain things that were just so cool being his friend,
Oh,
like when I bought that motorcycle that I talked about. The day I bought it, I took it to show him because I wanted him to see it. I was like, hey, I bought this. Oh, bring it by and show me, right? When I got to where he was at this place where he kept his giant motorhome, which was like a tour bus that rock and roll stars use.
Yep.
And he had this huge trailer that he would tow behind the bus when he would do his autograph signings, and open the trailer, and all his stuff would be in there. This is long before the museum. His motorcycles and his rock and everything was there. And they were shooting a documentary that day with a guy named Matt Hoffman, who was a famous BMX bike racer, the bicycles. And they were shooting a documentary, and I got there to show Evil the bike, right? And they didn't know who I was from Adam. And Evil was in the motorhome. And I had a friend with me who Evil was friends with, too. He's actually the guy who went to the canyon with me. But we get to Evil's motorhome door, right? And this guy's standing. He goes, yeah, can I help you? I go, I'm here to see Evil. He goes, yeah, who are you? And before the guy got finished talking, Evil's like, Bob, get your ass in here. Take your shoes off and get your ass in here. Because his motorhome was, I mean, he had marble floors and crystal chandeliers. He was the king, baby. Yeah. So everything was perfect, and he was the king. But little things like that are just awesome memories, because you're sitting there, you're just goof, and this guy's like, yeah, who are you? And he was like, oh, get your ass in here. And I just look at the guy like, dick.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And that happened more than once, like I went to one of his autograph signings once with my wife, and Evil was in the room, and people were trying to get in the room, and he was like yelling at the security guard, I'm coming out in 10 minutes, get him the fuck out, And I go walking by the room, and he yells, Bob, what the fuck you doing? Get in. So, I like walk right in while everybody else is like, what the fuck this, And I mean, little memories like that are just hilarious. My wife and I are like sitting in this office with him, and the people are like watching him, and he was popping these pills, and he goes, you see this one? This one's taking care, because he had a liver transplant. He goes, this keeps the liver from rejecting me. This takes this away. Oh, and this one here's my favorite. It keeps me from killing my wife. And I said, I was like, well, can I have 2 of those? But yeah, man, I got so many stories of Evil, and I mean, that's just a great time of my life. Only 10 years of it, but it is what it is.
And you know what? It's memories that'll last you for a lifetime, and you'll always hold them near and dear to your heart.
Right. I mean, I'm one of those guys that I would never, like, I have rules in my house. You can't say anything bad about Terry Funk, Evel Knievel, or Muhammad Ali. Yep. Everything else is fair game. Well, maybe Malenko, but, that's different. But no bad words in my house of those guys.
Well,
and I've actually, like, been rude to people who were, not favorable to Evil.
Well, especially, he treated you good, him personally. It's like, don't take nothing from nobody, because you knew him, they didn't.
Right, like, when we took the stuff out to the canyon for him, we get there, we didn't know exactly where we were, and we're down this dirt road, and there's this old security guard, there's some woman. And we're like, hey, do you know where Evil Knievel did the canyon jump? And she goes, oh, why the hell you want to know where that is? That son of a bitch is a piece of shit. Oh. And I looked at her and I said, oh, fuck you, I don't got time for your shit. And I just walked away while my friends sit there talking to him. I'm thinking, you know what it was? It's some old hag, some old skank, some old cobwebbed up, crotched old whore who Evil fucked back in the 70s, and she's just pissed off because he treated her like the dirt she was. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
Ring rats for Knievel. What would you call them? Jump whores? I don't know.
Yeah, what would you call them? That's a good idea. That's a good idea there. What do you call them?
But because Evil was like a huge... womanizer in his day. I mean, you've heard of the Bionic Woman, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he screwed her, and there's a legendary story of where he's like, there's a famous model who made some movies, actually a movie with Evil called Viva Knievel, Lauren Hutton, and there's like a legendary story, like, he's banging one of them in his restroom while the other one's like banging on the door. It's classic stuff. And I don't know if you ever heard of Jennifer Flowers. That's the woman that President Clinton screwed.
Yep.
And she was actually at the WrestleMania where The Rock kind of broke out, where he was being interviewed by her, and the last thing he said was like, if you smell what The Rock is cooking, which really took off. But Evil screwed her in the 70s. It's even in her book.
Wow.
Yeah, she says, hey, I screwed Evil Knievel. He was the most pompous, arrogant son of a bitch I've ever met, but the best sex I ever had. I'm thinking, damn, now that's a compliment.
Yeah,
I guarantee Evil will be like, hey, I appreciate that.
Oh yeah,
and that was when she looked really good. We're talking the 1970s. So
yeah, he'd be smiling from year to year on that one.
Right, that's a great story. Well, I know he knew it because he was. I mean, the book came out when he was still alive. He died in 2007. So.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's just. I love those kind of stories.
Oh, I do too. I love hearing about these stories. Any stories. Because it's something I never heard before.
I mean, some of my favorite Evil stories. I know I'm rambling again, but when Evil jumped the 13 buses in London in front of 100,000 people at Wembley Stadium. And before he even went out of the dressing room, he told Frank Gifford, who was his good friend, who was working for ABC Wide World Sports and was the commentator. And Evil told Frank, he says, I can't make this jump. It's too far. It's too high. And Frank said, well, we'll take a couple buses out. He goes, oh, hell no. I told him I'm jumping 13. I'm jumping 13. And then he went and took a nap, which is insane, right?
Yeah.
He comes out. People go nuts. He does what he does, his magic. He was a showman. Gets the people in a frenzy. Jumps, crashes, breaks his pelvis, breaks this, breaks that. They help him up. He walks to the top of the landing ramp, says he's never going to jump again, and gets walked out of the stadium. But the greatest story of all is that Frank Gifford, because he was close friends with Evil, right? When Evil crashed, Frank dropped the microphone live on ABC and ran down to help Evil. And he said they took the helmet off Evil, and Evil was gasping for air, and blood was coming out of his mouth. And Frank's like, oh, my God, I'm thinking my friend's going to die, right?
Yeah.
He says, I got down close to Evil, and I'm thinking, oh, man, it's going to be like his last words or something. He says, Frank, get that broad out of my room. That's my favorite story of all time. Here he is with 100,000 people. He crashes. He's bleeding. And Frank Gifford thinks he's dying, and he's going to say, like, hey, I love you or whatever. And he's like, get that broad out of my room. Because he knew he was in London. His wife wasn't with him. He was going to the hospital. It was all the national press. Certainly you don't want some slut coming out of the hotel room. But that's the greatest story of all time.
Yeah.
When he tells people he can't make it, he doesn't make it. And then the most important aspect, he's almost dying. And he's like, get that whore out of my room. I love that story. And I don't even care if it's true or not. Frank Gifford's told it 100 times, so it makes it true.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, those are the legendary stories. That was like the wrestling days, back in the old days when it was like outlaw. Everything was, you were like an outlaw lifestyle, Not like today where everything's micromanaged. People get offended if you fart too long.
Yeah, I know. Nothing is like it once was.
Oh, my God, he said the N-word, then he farted. Holy crap. Get the torches.
Nowadays, you can't even say ass on TV.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Well, Roman Reigns did on Monday. Remember, he said, busted my ass. Oh, yeah. Or I'm going to kick Cancer's ass. That's what he said.
Yeah. But
I know what you mean.
There's very few guys that they'll let say ass. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean that's understandable to a point. I mean, everybody has their television standard. Personally, my opinion of wrestling is it's never was intended to be family entertainment. Wrestling in the old days was blood and guts, take no prisoners, this is what we are. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't, but fuck you. That's the attitude they had.
Yeah.
Because you think back in the old days, like when Gorgeous George was hot in the 50s and the 40s, and if wrestling didn't change from what it was in the 50s to what it became in the 60s to what it absolutely became in the 70s, I never would have been a fan. Go back and watch stuff from the 50s and 60s, and some of it's good, but I never would have been a fan of it,
Yeah, it's just one of
wrestling
those things.
changes. And wrestling hasn't changed as much as people think either. What's changed now is just the mentality of the fan, thinking that it's because they don't get things exactly the way they want, rather than just being happy that they're actually able to watch the show and appreciate it. They don't, that sucks. This guy didn't win. Well, gives a shit.
Yeah,
but that's my opinion, you see. And my opinion is basically the right opinion, in case anyone's still listening.
You know what? Let's see. We do. Yeah.
Three people. Huh?
Yep. We do have people still on.
Well, I apologize if I bored them to death, but
hey,
two things you get from me, I told you. Wrestling and evil, and I'm never wrong.
Hey, you kept me excited. Actually, you're still keeping me excited.
I mean, when it comes to wrestling, the only advice I can give the fan is to stop being critics and be fans. If you watch the new movie, The Greatest Showman, with what's his name? Hugh Jackman, right?
Yep.
It's based on the story of Barnum and Bailey or something, Ring the Brother, whatever. There's a line in that movie that totally represents the attitude of the wrestling fan, although I can't remember the line offhand. Remember there's this guy who's following the circus. Did you see the movie?
You know what? I haven't seen it, but I want to see it.
It's a great movie, and I don't like musicals, but it's a fantastic movie. I mean, I hate movies though usually where they're like, "All right, Johnny, we're going to the bar. We're going to the bar." La, la, and they start singing or whatever. But it's a great movie. But there's this one scene that you'll see, like where there's this critic who's following the circus and he writes his stuff, and the line that Hugh Jackman says, it's something on their lines like, "Imagine that, a critic of the circus who doesn't like the circus," and it's like it sums it up. If you don't like something, why the freaking hell are you watching it, let alone giving your opinion of it,
Yeah, I mean, if you completely...
But the line itself is a perfect line, and when I watched, I literally played it back 4 times so I could get it right, because I posted it on Facebook when I heard it. I was like, holy shit! That's the greatest line ever that represents the attitude of the wrestling fans.
That's the difference, with people. Like, if you completely hate it, like, for real, if you for real hate it, then why are you watching something you hate? I mean, I'm like, how I like to think of at least myself is, I love it, but it's like, it's just for the same reason, why, well, you don't watch sports, but I do. Like sports fans, of like basketball, baseball, football, whatever pro sport, you prefer to watch. People will watch their teams, at their worst, and, keep rooting for them and waiting for the day when it gets better. And, I'm one of those, I could say I love it, but I would like to see it, go in a different direction. I would like to see it get better, but I love it. I love it to death, and I always will.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I watch the shows, and I no longer do anything but just watch them. I mean, it doesn't do me good to. You see so many people get upset about it. That's what drives. Like when Dean Ambrose turned on Monday night, I saw so many people bitching about it. I was like, "Are you people stupid?"
I love
that. Was the absolute best time. It was the best heel turn in the last 10 years.
Yes,
you had people screaming with true anger. Why, Dean? Why? For that few seconds, man, you had those people hooked. Whether they come back or not because they're assholes, and it's like, well, I'm not watching that no more because, like the assholes that turned on The Walking Dead because, oh, geez, that Negan, I hate him. Yeah, he's the greatest bad guy in freaking history. Of course you hate him, you moron. I love Negan. And again, I got an action figure of Negan 5 inches from my finger right now. But the point is, I don't know. I thought that Dean Ambrose heel turn was freaking fantastic.
I did too. Oh my God!
And you see the video. He didn't leave through the back. He left through the crowd, and they videoed him going through the crowd to the lobby. And people were legitimately out of his way, scared. Man, if they could keep that momentum going, that could be some awesome stuff. And what they need to do it, and even though I'm not trying not to be a critic, but what they need to do is make sure that Dean Ambrose isn't playing footsies and kissy face with the other fellow inmates on Twitter and different things, because you see that, And I don't have a problem with it, blah, blah, blah. But if you really want to make people convinced, man, he shouldn't sign autographs. He shouldn't take selfies with anybody. He should be the prick dick that he portrays on TV all the time.
I agree.
People will buy into it.
I totally agree, 100%.
Because, back in the old days, like I said, Terry Funk is my favorite wrestler and one of the greatest bad guys of all time. And I was hanging out with Terry at a show. It's actually the story is in a book that someone wrote. But I was hanging out with Terry at a show in Miami the night before he went to attack Flair at Wrestle War in '89. He did a show in Miami he fought Dusty in a bunkhouse match. And I went down there because my friend at the time, or still my friend, but she wrestled Wendy Richter on the show, and I went down with her and I videotaped her match. And because I worked for the company, I didn't work for them anymore, but I was friends with everybody, right? I videotaped Dusty's match and Terry's match because I wanted to. It's Dusty Rhodes and Terry Funk, damn it. But the point is, Terry was there, obviously, and like I said, I hung around with him anytime I could. And early in the show, I'm talking to Terry, and he's sitting on a forklift, and where he's telling me a story, right? Mm-hmm. And some security guard come over and told him, we really can't be sitting on a forklift. And Terry just said something smart-assy to him and told him to fuck off, and the guy didn't do anything because he's freaking Terry Funk. He was in the best shape of his life in '89. And I just laughed, and he went back to telling me the story. And then later, we're standing by the curtain, and we're both, he's telling me stories, but we're peeking through the curtain watching the matches. And a little kid comes up, and he asks for his autograph. And Terry treated the kid like crap. And he ran away, right? Yep. And I asked Terry, I said, man, Terry, why'd you treat that kid like crap? And he said, Bob, if these people see me back here watching this match, and I'm being nice to this kid, they're not going to believe that I'm the asshole bad guy that I'm trying to make them think I am when I go through that curtain in 10 minutes. And man, I was like, holy shit, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. And it made more sense than anything, right?
It really does.
And the reality is, that's the way Terry was. And I never caught on to it before, but when you started paying attention, he treated everybody that wasn't part of the show, your people on the inside, like shit. Anybody part of the building, anything, he treated it. Not only he didn't just walk up and cause trouble, but he was just not a nice guy. He wouldn't be cordial. He wouldn't shake their hand. And he did that. He told me he started, when he pulled into a town, he became Terry Funk the Badass. As soon as he got out of the car, whether it was at the gas station or what, as soon as he got in town, he was no longer Mr. Humble. But again, in the dressing room, talking to the guys, yes, he's Terry Funk. He's the God. He's the guy. But, like I just said. But for the people who weren't part of the business, he was as kayfabe as ever, and that was awesomeness.
Oh, you know what? And kayfabe is one of the best things, about the business. Oh,
yeah. I mean, if you go back and watch the footage of Terry Funk in WCW in 1989, that was like my favorite year ever, not only because I was there, but because he was so great in that role as the heel.
He was
fantastic. Unbelievable. His matches with Flair and Sting and Steamboat that year were some of the best ever, let alone that year. And you ever watched the match from the Great American Bash '89 when he came back and he fought Flair up? He did the pile driver on the table. I don't know if you've watched any of that old stuff. But.
Oh yeah, I love the old school wrestling. Yeah.
I mean, he worked that match at the Great American Bash with a broken tailbone.
Wow.
If you watch that match, you see certain ways where he tries to pick Flair up. He picks him up, he squats down to pick him up because his back was so screwed up. And it's one of the best matches in freaking history.
Wow, Terry Funk is one tough hombre.
That's what I was going to say.
You're talking the toughest of the tough right there to work through that.
Yeah, and I'm sure maybe he took some shots in his back, but the point is he did it. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, to actually go through with it and do it and, finish it off and finish the match. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment.
And that's another part of that story I was talking about. Miami, after the show, we went to a bar. My friend who wrestled, Wendy Rick, there, she knew Terry too, but we went to a bar afterwards with Terry and sat there for like 3 hours. And he's just telling us stories. And that was the year the movie Roadhouse came out, right? Mm-hmm. And Terry's telling me a story, and a commercial for Roadhouse came on, and he was on it. And these girls in the bar caught it and came over to the table and like, hey, you the guy in that commercial? And Terry looked at him and he said, get the fuck away from me. I'm talking to my friend. And these were good-looking girls, too. And I had, like, the biggest smile on my face ever. I'm sitting here like, Terry Funk, in the best shape of his life, good-looking girls come over, saw him on TV, part of a movie with Patrick Swayze, and he fucked him off and talked to me. I was like, holy shit. And he went back to tell me the story. I can't remember the story, but I remember that, where he said, get the fuck away from me. I'm talking to my friend, just like the heel Terry Funk. It was awesome.
It's like, thanks, Terry. That is great stuff.
Hey, I don't mean to, say I have to go, but my dog's sitting by the door whining. I know when he's whining, he's got to go.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
I got you.
He's a good little guy, and I love him to death, but he don't whine often. Usually I go, you want to go for a walk? Oh, there goes the ears. But he's sitting there whining, so I know he's got to go without asking.
He's ready for you to take him for a walk, huh?
Yep.
Well, Bob, before we go, I want to talk to you about your match. If you got anything that you want to promote about your upcoming match in January, or anything coming up, please tell everybody about it. Or if you got a link for a website or anything that you want to tell anybody to check out, go right ahead. The floor is yours.
I really don't. I mean, the match is supposed to be January 12th in Tampa as part of a thing called IPW Reunions in a Cage. But they haven't actually made it official as far as my participation. So, because it's like 11 weeks away.
Oh, I got
But
you.
I appreciate the effort.
Hey, no problem. And
hopefully I'll figure out a way to get out of it by then.
Hey, I'm hoping you wrestle in it. You kidding me?
Well, in my mind, it sounds like a good idea, but that's only because I'm not there yet.
And one last two-part question. One last one to end it for everybody. And there might be one answer. Your one answer might cover both parts that I'm going to ask you, or it might be two different people. But here's my two-part question. First part is, if you had to choose anybody, living, or passed on, that you never got to wrestle, who would it be? And, it could even be anyone from today. And the second part is, out of anybody active, today, any active wrestler today in any company around the world, who would you want to face?
Well, I could tell you right now that the two people I would have loved to face were Shawn Michaels and Terry Taylor. They're both two of the best ever, and I never got to work with them. And I would have loved to. And for today, I would love to work with Roman Reigns, because I don't care what anybody says. Guy's awesome. I'd love to take a bump off his Superman punch. I don't care what anybody says. I love the Superman punch. He can do it from any angle, any style, and it always looks great from every. So forget people who hate him. I would love to work with Roman Reigns. And I'm not just saying that because of his announcement. It's true.
Oh, believe me, I know you'll tell like it is. And
I've always been a proponent or a supporter of Roman Reigns, and I hate the fans that just, he sucks, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Tell me when he's had a bad match, and I'll tell you when he's had a good match. Go. Never and always. There you go.
Yeah, nobody can really point out a completely bad match that he had. I mean, that's true.
He even had a great match once with the Big Show on a pay-per-view. I'm talking about the Big Show.
Yeah, that was that.
How often has he had a great match?
One, yep. That was that last man standing one that they had. I remember that.
The Big Show's greatest match in recent years was his last match, because hopefully it was his last fucking match.
Yeah.
There you go.
I agree. He's only had, it was either 32 or 34. I forgot. 32 or 34 different occasions where Big Show has turned face and heel. Go figure that out.
I don't care about that stuff. I don't care about that stuff, but I'm just saying, I've always been a fan of Roman. I think he busts his ass, and that's the way it is.
Hey.
And anybody who doesn't have the WWE Network, they're missing out, because I love that too.
Oh, yeah. That's the number one thing you gotta have.
Have you ever watched the WrestleMania theater part in the network?
The WrestleMania, yeah, yes, yep, the WrestleMania.
I think that's
theater,
awesome.
Yep.
Because you get to watch other versions of famous WrestleMania matches with the same commentary, but camera angles and shots that weren't part of the original viewing of the match, and it gives you a totally different perspective. The match between Roman Reigns at WrestleMania with Brock Lesnar, the first time when Rollins came in and won the title, man, you watch it from the WrestleMania. I mean, I thought it was an awesome match to begin with, but you watch it from the WrestleMania theater, it's a whole different perspective and brutality. And again, I'm not a big fan of brutalizing each other, but again, better them than me. I don't mind watching.
How did you feel about the match at Backlash with Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe? A lot of people thought that one was a bad match. I'm curious.
Yeah, I can't even say when was it. I hate Samoa Joe, so I can't say. And again, I always give credit when it's due. I thought Samoa Joe had an awesome match with AJ Styles wherever it was recently on one of the shows.
That was.
But I hate Samoa Joe.
I hate his look. Showdown.
I hate his.
That was Super Showdown, the match with AJ and Joe, and then the Backlash show with Roman and Joe. That was in May. That was after WrestleMania.
I don't know. I mean, I know I saw it. I don't remember. And again, if it was good, I'd give credit. So I can't say. I can't remember. But I'm not a fan of Samoa Joe, but I am someone who doesn't not like somebody and not being able to tell the difference between good and bad. Because, hey, I know the difference between good and bad. But I think Samoa Joe, for the most part, is horrible. He's lazy. He's got the worst punch in wrestling, but yet they put it over. Oh, God, he's got this. Oh, he just punched him. It's like, what the hell? He does these shit-ass jabs to a guy's chest? Get out of here.
Rawkey's in here, and he says, what's up, Bob?
Rocky Maivia?
No, just Rawkey.
Oh. Going to ask to borrow some money. I heard that guy's rich.
Oh, yeah. If you're talking about Rocky Maivia, that guy's loaded.
Yeah, did you see that picture I posted of him with Hulk Hogan?
Yep.
That's an awesome picture when he was like basically 2 years old.
Oh, that one was awesome.
I stole that from someone's Instagram.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, someone had it on Instagram. I was like, well, geez, I got to save that. And I think I got 225 likes last I looked. That's pretty good for an old jobber.
Hey.
I hate that term. I told you I hate that term. What are you doing bringing it up? Got to show you running.
Hey, you said it. You said that word, not me.
Oh, that's right. See, I'm getting old. I told you I was getting old. Fat, old, losing my memory.
And Lisa says, Bob, you're awesome. Enjoyed this interview and hope to see you back sometime. So
you probably can't even guess. I bet you nobody out there listening can guess what I'm doing at the exact moment I'm doing it.
You know what? I don't think I could guess. I'll take a wild guess. Are you walking your dog? Because you said you had to go walk your dog.
No, I'm actually wiping the dust off, the little bit of dust that's on my Andre the Giant action figure. What do you think of that? True story.
Polishing up that Andre figure.
Just a little bit. I saw it while I'm standing here.
Oh, there you go.
Andre's dead. You can't have dead people with dust on them. It's disrespectful. They'll come back and haunt you. Like a whore wife.
Yeah, oh, you don't need another one of those.
No, I don't mind a whore. I just don't want to marry her.
Yeah, no, just do the deed and that's it. Get out.
That's right.
Bob, I had a fantastic time. I hope I didn't keep you too long.
Yeah, I don't have a life, so you can't do that.
I mean, this is
I'm going to, believe it or not, it's 2:00 in the morning. I'm going to walk my dog, and then I'm going to make tacos, and I'm going to watch 2 movies before I go to bed. So there.
Wow.
Yep. I'm a late nighter.
I'll probably be playing Red Dead Redemption. By the way, once the full game downloaded, it's 98.15 gigs.
Jesus. I got a PlayStation with, like, what do they call it? That 1,000 gig or tera gig or gimmick, whatever?
Yeah, 1 terabyte, yep.
Will that handle it?
Yep, yeah, because this is just 100 gigs, so that would take up 1/10 of your space.
Oh. Is the game any good? Obviously, it's good. I'm hearing crazy things about it.
Oh, yeah, the game is amazing, and you play as Arthur.
Seeing it's made by Rockstar, can you pick up prostitutes? I mean, they were, like, everywhere in the Old West. I'd be really disappointed if you can't.
You know what? I haven't been able to pick any of them up yet. I think they reserved that for just the Grand Theft Auto series.
Damn it. Then I guess, can you just shoot people indiscriminately, like anybody?
Well, right now I'm to the point where I'm doing the story mode, and, when you meet up with people in the woods, yeah, you could shoot them. As far as people that you could shoot any time, that's probably going to happen when they launch the online play, which the online play is coming soon.
Oh, I don't play online.
Because they don't have that launched yet, but I got one of those online memberships. So I ended up getting that. I ended up getting the WWE 2K19, but been having some pretty much fun with it.
Yeah, I got that. I like it, but I lose interest fast.
Yeah.
What I do is go in the Creator Wrestler and take the clothes off the women.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I took the clothes off Nia Jax, and I was like, geez, feel bad for whoever's going out with her. That's right. That's body shaming. Deal with it.
Yeah,
I'm not the one who... I didn't make her fat. Don't blame me.
Yeah, someone will find some way to twist that badly, right?
Oh, yeah, I'll be hearing it.
Uh,
I've seen pictures of her when she was thinner. She's pretty hot.
I saw those pictures, too. I'm like, I can't even believe it's the same woman.
Well, all-you-can-eat buffets are the curse
of
the obese.
Yeah, you know what? Pretty much the same thing happened to me. I gained weight quick, and now I lost 50 pounds, and I got to lose another 50.
And join the club. Free memberships. Bring your own meal.
Yeah, I got to keep it going.
That's all you got to do. Oh, I don't mean to rush. I mean, I'll rush. Like, we've been on the phone for 3 hours. But my dog's really got to go.
All right, Bob. Well, let me get us off the air then so that we can say our goodbyes. And again, Bob, thank you for joining us on the show tonight. And I hope to see you back on here.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. And like I said, if there's anybody still listening, stop being a critic. Stop being a hater. Look in the mirror. Be happy to be alive. Sit your fat asses down, watch the show, and shut the F up. Thank you. That's the state of the cooker address.
Last words from the cooker.
That's right. Be a fan. That's it. Just be a fan. Imagine, seriously, what is it like? I told some guy about that a couple years ago, and he thanked me. I told him, man, it's just a stupid wrestling show. And that's the reality. It's just a stupid, silly wrestling show where grown adults pretend to fight. Enjoy it. Don't overthink it. Don't analyze it. Enjoy it. It's not going to change the world. Trump's still the president. Clinton's still a whore. And I'm still fat. Enjoy the show. Here, what do you think of that?
Hey, that's a good closing line.
That's it. It's like, just be a fan. Just enjoy it. Enjoy it. Quote the cooker, nevermore.
There you go.
And I know Raven too, so I got away with that.
If he listens, I'm sure he'll love that one.
Oh, I knew him when he first started. Really nice guy. Neurotic, but nice.
Hopefully he gets a listen to this podcast and gets to hear you do that.
We had a match once. I know I'm rambling again, but back in like 88 or something, it was me and him against Mike Graham and Steve Kern, right?
Yeah.
And we're in the main event. And Mike and Steve didn't know we were going to do this. But we start pushing each other. Like during the match, we were mad at each other. We push each other. We start circling around like we're wrestling. We lock up. We push off. We lock up. We push off. Mike and Steve are standing there like, what the hell are they doing? Then we hugged and started wrestling with them again. And they're just like, they start laughing,
Oh, that sounds like a fun one.
And it was in front of probably 200 people, and I got $50, and I spent $60, and I didn't even tip the rat. What are you going to do? Well, I gave her a tip of something, but it wasn't dollar bills. Oh!
There you go.
How's that to end the show?
That's perfect.
You heard of cow tipping? That's rat tipping. Tip of what? Tip of this.
That is perfect.
Yeah. Should have been a comedian, but I can't stand, so I couldn't be a stand-up.
All right, guys, before I get out of here and I sign us off, first I want you guys to listen to this quick 10-second message. I know Bob won't be able to hear it. It won't go through his speaker, but I want you guys to listen to the 10-second message from NXT Superstar EC3, Ethan Carter III, and then I'll be right back to sign us out. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, this is EC3 of TNA Wrestling, and you are so very fortunate because you are watching Beyond the Ring with Big T.
All right, there we go. And Bob, again, I know your dog's got to go out, so I'll sign us off. Hang on the line real quick. But Bob, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, and let me just say one last thing. I do apologize if I offended any of you, and if I didn't offend any of you, I'll try harder next time. Okay? Take back.
And we hope to have you back soon, my friend.
All right. And tell Bill Orton to send me those damn pictures of Ronda Rousey, and I don't be the ones with her clothes on.
I will tell him. And well, you got, like I said, Bill Orton. He also wanted me to tell you that you got the best punch, and that he said hello.
And I said, hello, Bill, and of course I have the best punch. Who didn't know that? Bill Watts said so. You can argue with Bill? I wouldn't.
There you go. And ladies and
Bill Watts actually asked me to teach his son Eric how to punch, and I tried. And Eric tells a story about it, and it's quite hilarious and quite awesome for him to tell the story. So there you go.
Oh, okay. It's not a story.
I know I can't. I keep bringing stuff up. What are you gonna do? It's
not a story that you could tell, though, huh? Just him.
No, it's a good story. What it was is like, I was what I did, and I was who I was, and Eric puts me over. Is the point of the story? He says, Bob, thanklessly, my dad asked him to teach me how to punch, and he went in a room and he punched a door 100 times and didn't even touch it, but it looked like he killed it, and I'm trying to keep up, and I couldn't. And Bob was one of the best, however he said it, and it was really awesome thing for him to say, because he got a lot of flack back in the day for being Bill's son, and he was just a kid put in a tough situation, and he handled it quite wonderfully.
Oh.
And the hell with what the fans think, then or now.
Hey, as long as these guys did their thing, right?
Exactly.
That's what it's all about.
And I have another claim to fame. I had Dustin Rhodes' very first match ever, and his second, and his third. So there's some more fame. What do you think of that?
Whoa!
Yes,
really?
I lost. Get over yourself, fans. But I had him.
Really? You were Dustin Rhodes' first, second, and third match?
Yep. Wow. His first match was at a small show he did in Arcadia, Florida, or wherever it was. There's like 100 people there. And then his second match was in Tampa, and they taped that for TV, and that's the one they actually say is his first match. When his first match actually was the one where there was no cameras, but, Dusty Rhodes would always say, "It's Bobby Cook. He had Dustin's first match, baby."
That's really cool.
I could tell you one last funny story if you want to hear it.
Let's do it. Let's do one more Let's do one more.
Whenever it was, I don't remember, 92, 90, whatever, WCW was doing this thing called the Battle of the Underdogs. It was basically us guys that did the TV every week against each other, and, you get to win or lose, So my match was against Joey Maggs, who was a great guy, no longer with us. But all the guys are around the ring, right? It's a pre-show meeting. All the guys are around the ring. And Dusty's giving the speech, and he's like, "We're going to shake things up tonight, baby. Even Bobby Cook's going to get a win." And I stood up and I said, "But Dusty, I don't want to win." He said, "Sit down and shut up, Bobby. You're going to win." So there's the story. And I went out there and I beat Joey Maggs, and I accidentally hurt his knee, and I still feel bad about it today. But what are you going to do? He's dead. But I didn't cause it.
Hey, I got to tell you that your Dusty Rhodes impersonation is right on point.
Well, I don't know about that, but I always thought that was a funny story because all the guys laughed. They're all, "Oh, dummy, don't want to win." And the funny thing is, I went to an NXT show with a friend right down the road from me a couple months ago, and I saw Terry Taylor for the first time, and he was there that night. And I ain't seen Terry in like 20 years, and I went up to him and said, "Terry, you probably don't remember me." I gained some weight. He goes, "Oh, yeah, Bob. Hey, how you doing?" Give me a hug, and he said, "Oh, yeah, how could I forget you? You didn't want to win on TV. You're the only guy I know that didn't want to win on TV." And I was like, I can't believe you remember that. He goes, "How could I forget it?" But I got the win.
Yeah, you got it.
And it's on YouTube, too. Just don't watch it. It's not a very good match. But that's Joey's fault. That's Joey's fault because I hurt his knee. See how I did that?
There you go.
Switch the blame.
I was going to say, I was going to check it out on YouTube.
It's there, but it's not pretty.
Well, Bob, thanks for another story, and I really appreciate all the time you gave us tonight.
Well, like I said, I don't have a life, and you asked, so now you're going to regret it. Probably edit out about 90% of what I said, and I don't have a problem with
that. I'm keeping the full length up here.
Uh-oh. That'll get you a whole negative views. Is that even possible? Could be possible.
No, it's impossible.
People will be like leaving comments. How can I take my view back? What the hell?
Be like, too late. You already gave it to me.
That's 3 hours I'll never get back. And he was talking about doing heroin. I got a guy delivering it right now because of him. Sorry.
Oh,
Don't blame me for your addictions. Just share it if you ever get any.
There you go. Well, Bob, I really hope that you will come back on soon. Maybe after the new year. After you have that match in January.
I'll call you from my hospital bed. Yeah.
Love to have you back on to talk about it, and I really appreciate.
Well, shouldn't you have me on before the match so I could promote it? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're more than welcome to come back on beforehand if you want. Definitely. Just let me know beforehand. I definitely have you come back on beforehand and promote it. That's not a problem at all.
I was just kidding. I don't care, but I appreciate you letting me ramble and give my side of life.
Hey,
that is
that's what
the cooker's view.
That's what this show's all about. It's all about my guests coming on here, using this as their platform to say whatever the fuck they want to say.
Yeah, I'll probably get some heat for the Vader comments, but what's he gonna do? Sit on me? Not anymore.
Yeah, not now. But I know you want to take your dog out, so I'll wrap this up and let you go here because I know you want to get your dog for a walk. I know that, but I appreciate the time that you gave us. It's much appreciated, and definitely look forward to having you back soon for sure.
All right, appreciate it, and thank you again, and good night from the Sunshine State. I always say, so long from the Sunshine State. That was Gordon Soley's gimmick.
Yeah. And then, Cooker, just hang on the line. I'll sign off here with everybody, and I'll be right back to you.
All right.
And ladies and gentlemen here, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. This has been episode number 150 of the Beyond the Ring with Big T Wrestling podcast for Friday, October 26th, 2018. And this is our interview with professional wrestler Bob Cook. We will be having him back soon. And everybody, I will see you guys next time. And yes, there will be a next time. Don't forget us, and we won't forget you. And when you want the best for all of your professional wrestling needs, always remember to think beyond the ring. And as always, guys, I am your host, Big T, and I will see you at the matches. Take care, have a great night, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you to Bob Cook for being here again, and I love you all. Good night, everybody.